versus unvaxxed. Some research from Del Bigtree. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Well, ABC News has a story headline, what to know about the Trump administration's $20 billion bailout for Argentina. You only need to know one thing. He's not doing anything to help the farmers. And as a matter of fact, Argentina took advantage of this to steal market share from American farmers with China, using Trump's tariffs and using Trump's bailout to do that. And that's only the tip of the iceberg. Look, they haven't done anything to help the American farmers. And it's not like they didn't know, because they heard him before when they went to war with China over trade in his first term. But they didn't prepare to do anything about the harm that they were going to inflict. And instead, they're still, prevaricating around the bush with all this stuff. And what has been proposed is less than half of what they want to give Argentina anyway. Less than half of what the damage that has been done to just the soybean farmers alone. And that's not even the full story. The full story, which is just now coming out after Besant held his press conference, the full story is that our government is going to give them $20 billion, is going to then work with them with currency swaps, and then they're going to put together a so-called private package with the big banks. They're going to lean on big banks to loan them money. And so that's going to be another $20 billion. So I don't know how much the currency swaps are worth, but just the loans, the direct loans from the American government and from the big banks and so forth are going to be $40 billion. Not a penny for the American farmer. Just outrageous. When you look at this, how much longer how many more data points do people need before they see that Trump is working for the World Economic Forum, the Council on Foreign Relations? Remember that, the CFR? Well, where are the conservatives? Used to be CFR was fighting words, right? That was like World Economic Forum or something. Of course, he's friendly with them as well. But the CFR loves what Trump is doing, and but not the farmers. And yet they will not turn on him. Trump's $20 billion bailout of Argentina's economy raised red flags in the U.S., especially among American farmers desperate to help dealing with the crop crisis triggered by his trade war with China. It isn't like something happened and he's got to react to it. He triggered this. He's the one who started all of this. This is his plan, and yet he didn't have a plan, did he? Argentina's President Javier Milei met with Trump and top U.S. officials, including Treasury Secretary Besant, Tuesday at the White House. A $20 billion financial lifeline that included a currency swap framework with Argentina's central bank aimed at propping up the Argentine peso. So again, trust the plan? There wasn't any plan, and they still don't have a plan to do anything. We just want to see Argentina do well, said Trump. Evidently not our farmers. If this doesn't wake people up to see that Trump is a globalist, that he's concerned with corruption and the rest of the stuff, nothing will. He doesn't care about Americans. He doesn't care about the welfare. And it's not about the welfare of farmers. It's about us even having jobs. Supposedly, the whole rationale for this trade war was to make America independent. How do you make us independent if you kill our farms, our small and medium-sized farms? Because the big guys are going to do fine. They can weather this with the stock market. But they'll be the ones who get the bailout if and when anything comes. The expectations, Besant said, is that these dollars will eventually be paid back. How many times have we heard that? Yeah, it was foreign aid, but they're going to pay us back. Have we ever seen that happen? Not to my knowledge. Even his tariffs are not about helping the middle class America, but they're about helping a globalist billionaire cartel. As a matter of fact, this is what senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, Brad Setzer, said. You can call it a bailout. You can call it a rescue. It is a credit line to a country that otherwise would be out of reserves, he said. Besant has repeatedly denied that the deal is a bailout, saying that the U.S. is supporting the economic reforms of a key South American ally and advancing U.S. strategic interests in the region. How is it in our strategic interest to lose our farms? Small and medium-sized. It's not. It's in their strategic interest. That's their geopolitical plan. That's not for America. Besant said Wednesday that the U.S. is looking at another $20 billion lifeline, this time funded by private banks and sovereign wealth funds. So, $40 billion package. Nothing for farmers. They can't put together even a private assistance for the farmers, can they? But they can do it for Argentina. I'm fed up with this guy. I can't believe it.
No money for American farmers, but they'll fund their competition.
That's right. And that's what some of the farmers are saying. Here's the deal. They keep saying, well, we would give some money to the American farmers, even though he's been talking about this tariff stuff since when? Day one. Okay. So for 9 months, he's been talking about doing the tariff, but he never put together a package. He never planned to put together a package. He said, now I can't do it because the government shut down. Well, if you can put together a private package of $20 billion for Argentina, maybe you could do that. No, they doesn't care at all about any of this stuff.
There's also the fact that for someone who's supposed to be the best at this sort of thing,
Yeah.
you would think you would have had an inbuilt response. Like, all right, what is the likely reaction of these countries once I put tariffs on? Well, they're probably going to stop buying our products.
Well, he knows that because it happened the first term. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he knows that China specifically targeted the agricultural things. And then we had, I don't know if that's still in the deck or not, Lance, but the email that was, or text that was sent from Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins said, look what happened. You guys gave money. You, the Treasury Department, agreed to give money to Argentina. They dropped their export taxes on these agricultural products, and China loaded up on it, and they haven't bought any soybeans from us, zero, all this year. He knows all of this stuff. He's the guy who broke the British central bank along with Soros, but he was really kind of the brains behind the issue. And I think he's being set up to break us as well. So the bailout has sparked controversy with farmers, Democrats, and some Republicans, questioning why the U.S. would commit billions to boost the economy of a foreign country. Yeah, why would we help Argentina and Israel and this country and that country? And we do nothing for our country. Because it's not even about helping those countries. It's about making money for the guys that are going to be handing the stuff. It's just like the military-industrial complex. Our wars are not about trying to do the right thing anywhere. It's about making money for the war machine here in America. So China stopped purchasing American soybeans amidst the trade war with the U.S. And according to the American Soybean Association, China is the largest buyer of American soybeans, purchasing more than 50% of U.S. exports in 2023 and 2024. But that's not the only farm products that they are attacking. That's the one that everybody's focusing on because it's the biggest, but that's not the only one that's there. And what has Trump's response been? Did he double down to try to get an agreement? No. What he did was he had a tariff tantrum, and he raised the Chinese tariffs back up to 100%. While some American farmers have said they're afraid of bankruptcies and foreclosures because of their losses, Argentina and Brazil's farmers are increasingly supplying Chinese markets with soybeans. From his tractor, one farmer that they reached said the U.S. is, quote, bailing out our competitor in the soybean production business. Clearly, people are not happy about the markets, and my neighbors are not happy about bailing out Argentina, our competitor. Minnesota farmer Darren Johnson said China's purchase of soybeans from Argentina has cost the U.S. leverage in trade talks by satisfying China's demand for the crop. So even if you look at this and say, well, Trump is playing 4D chess, that means he's going to have to kill my farm, and I'm okay with that. Well, then even if you're looking at that and saying, well, if we can bring China to its knees or stop this big trade imbalance that we've got with China, as if that was something that was really important, the net result is that by giving money to Argentina and Argentina then making up the shortfall, that doesn't even make the geopolitics work. He added that many farmers still support Trump, despite frustrations with some of the administration's policies. Yeah, it kind of looks like this. A homeless guy living on the street, holding up a sign, I trusted the plan. That's what's going to happen to the farmers. And they don't want to budge. We're going to put it to good faith in this administration that we're going to get a trade deal, but we're running out of time, said the farmer Darren Johnson. Without a little help from this administration, which we don't know what is going on yet, there is still a fair amount of uncertainty. But an Iowa farmer told ABC News, the bailout of Argentina seems to run counter to Trump's America First vision. He says, it does feel like you are propping up your competition. It does seem counterintuitive to the American First ideology. I don't see any place where we come out of this ahead in the transactions. But don't worry, because Trump's people love him so much that he could shoot somebody in the head on Fifth Avenue, as he said, and they'll still vote for him. And he could kill the farmers that support him, the core of his support, and they'll still vote for him when it comes up again. As a matter of fact, I saw this from Scott Adams talking about how he has no regrets for giving up everything for Donald Trump. According to him, he gave up everything. I think that his column was never funny, insightful, or interesting. And so I don't know, but maybe it did cost him. I'm sure it probably did at some point. But here's Scott Adams.
Here's what I feel, and I hope that the rest of you feel it too. As I posted on X, cryptically, but I only wanted the people who understood to understand it. I don't want everybody to understand it. And my post on X was just this. This is why. That's it. This is why.
So profound, isn't it?
The few of you who don't know exactly what that means is that in 2016, when I decided to, I didn't know I was doing it at the time, but quickly I figured it out. When I decided I would throw away my entire social life to back Trump, and when I eventually threw away my entire career, which even before I was canceled, my licensing business and book sales went to almost nothing because I was supporting Trump. I sacrificed everything. I sacrificed my social life. I sacrificed my career. I sacrificed my reputation. I may have sacrificed my health.
Yeah, you got the vaccine. Told other people to do it too.
Because I believed it was worth it. Today's the day.
Yeah, is it worth it? Yeah. This is the guy who said that the freedom lovers, when they were locking everybody down, and those of us who were protesting it, freedom lovers are looking like sociopaths. And I said, these so-called pragmatists are looking like totalitarians. This guy never got it. Finally, he admitted, well, you guys are right about all this COVID stuff and the vaccine, but hey, you just got lucky. You didn't know what was going on. He has no clue about what's going on. He is typical of the MAGA people from the top to the bottom. So, yeah, it feels like you're propping up your competition. It feels like you're stabbing your own people in the back. Well, it feels like that because that's what it is. Iowa Republican Senator Chuck Grassley also criticized the priorities of the Trump administration when word of the Argentine deal was making the rounds. Why would the USA bail out Argentina while they take American soybean producers' biggest market? We should use leverage at every turn to help the hurting farm economy. Family farmers should be the top of mind in negotiations by representatives of the U.S. No, we don't even talk to Argentina and tell them to back off, do we? The $40 billion that they're putting together, you think that might give them a little place at the table to tell Javier Milei, here's what we'd like for you to do. Don't make up the shortfall. We're in a trade war with China, and I'm doing this to help America, maybe, right? So please don't sell your soybeans to China. Put your export taxes back on that you took off. They don't even do that. They don't even do that for the farmers. They don't put together a private bailout like they're putting together for Argentina. They don't tell Argentina, hey, because we're helping you, we want you to do this to help us. They don't even do that. They're not going to pay us back. There is no payback on any of this stuff.
Real quick as an offside, Scott Adams is at a phase in his life where he should be spending time with his family, spending time with the people who are close to him. Yeah. But instead, he's posting these sorts of videos on Twitter as a way almost to, I don't know, cement a legacy. Like, I was part of this. Yeah. And instead of having children, instead of having people that will be there with him, this is what he's doing. Yeah, and I feel so sorry for him. Mm-hmm. He was wrong. And it's important to remember that. But you can learn other things from Scott Adams other than he was wrong about COVID. He's been wrong about the way he's lived his life. He shouldn't be sitting on Twitter with as little time as he has left, bragging about, this is what I wanted. I got what I voted for. Who cares, Scott? Yeah. There's other things. There's more important things in this right now. And you don't have much time left to find that out. I hope you do. I really do. I really hope you know Jesus, because you're going to be meeting him soon. And I really hope you learn about him before you get to meet him.
That's the important thing. Thank you for saying that. I see I see somebody spewing out lies and deception, and my instinct is to come in with guns blasting on the guy, but you're right. We should have a little bit of compassion for him and some sympathy for him, because he really is clueless, not just about COVID and the vaccine and Trump, keep going down the list, but he's clueless about what really matters eternally, and so we should have sympathy for him and should pray for him. My instinct is just to attack. I'm like a Dalek when it comes out there. It's like, destroy. I'm sorry. Thank you for bringing that in. That's really needed. Thank you. So U.S. soybean prices are falling. Harvest is underway. Farmers read headlines not about securing a trade agreement with China, matter of fact, another tariff tantrum, but that the U.S. government is extending $20 billion in economic support to Argentina, while that country drops its soybean export taxes to sell 20 shiploads of Argentine soybeans to China in just 2 days. By the way, speaking of shiploads, what Trump has done, which also hurts not just the farmers, but anybody who is building anything that they would like to export anywhere, not just to China. But if somebody shows up and they were going to be, you've got a shipment of stuff that's going to another country, let's say you're shipping something to Britain, okay? And if they show up with a ship that was made in China, Trump has levied massive fines on that in terms of what people have to pay. And that goes on the price of exports from America. As I said the other day, Javier Milei was supposed to be this libertarian economist, and yet he's allowed, up until this point, he just took him off because he wanted to take advantage of the American soybean farmer. But prior to that, his administration had taxes on exports. How in the world does a libertarian economist tax exports? How could you justify that? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever for your own country. So, it's not just the other tariffs, it's also the additional fees that Trump is putting on for somebody using a Chinese ship to come to America. And so that has created all kinds of chaos as people try to move around to make sure the ship that they're using was not made in China because of Trump's tantrums. The farm economy is suffering while our competitors supplant the U.S. in the biggest soybean import market in the world. And this is Trump's role to play. He is there to be a pacifier in the mouth of the people who would scream about this kind of stuff. Instead, they just go along because, it's all about my people, isn't it? So he promised to help the soybean farmers, but if he's going to do that, he needs to do it before the farms die. Harming American consumers is also happening, but he has a different story about that as well. And
you had the greatest inflation. The last administration had the greatest inflation in the history of our country. And now, as you know, groceries are down. It's all down.
Are you settling?
Groceries down? Have you seen that? Do you think that grocery prices have dropped? I don't think so. I see all these memes. One of them was the most expensive vehicle to operate, and it was a shopping cart at a grocery store. And then, of course, there's this factual thing. U.S. grocery prices reached a record high this year. Prices are higher today than they were July 2024. All in major categories, and all major categories is listed below, and there's the chart. But, of course, Trump just lies. He just bull-faced lies. And this is a strategy that goes back to his pal, Bill Clinton. When Bill Clinton was asked stuff, he just looked you straight in the face and lied to you about it. Even when you knew he was lying, he would still do it. Trump is the same way, cut from the same cloth as the Clintons. Trump says the deal helps South American conservative ally before the election in Argentina. Milei has made headlines for his libertarian beliefs, has frequently been seen with conservative leaders and figures, including people like Elon Musk. Well, he's also, I'm sure it hasn't hurt his position, the fact that Javier Milei converted to Judaism and also to Chabad Lubavitch, which is the sect that Jared Kushner belongs to, that Ben Shapiro belongs to, the one that Trump went to pray to, if you remember that during the campaign. He says, if Javier Milei loses, we're not going to be generous with Argentina. If he doesn't win, we're gone. Trump said no when asked how the currency swap was an America First policy. He said, or if it was just to help Milei in the upcoming elections. Well, I think that you need to just say no, K-N-O-W, just like with the drug war. Bessent has also been on the hot seat over Argentina's ties to some of his former colleagues in the financial world. Rob Citron, a billionaire who once worked with Bessent, has sizable investments in Latin America and Argentina. Billionaire Stanley Druckenmiller, a longtime friend of Bessent, has publicly said he invested in Argentina after Milei's election. Druckenmiller did not immediately return messages to ABC News for comment. And, of course, neither did the other guy, Rob Citron. They declined comment. Bessent has denied that the deal has any connection to his financial colleagues. I wonder, just asking for a friend, how many Iowa farmers do you think Bessent has? How many does he party with? How about Trump? The people going to benefit from this are the people that they hang out with. It's their friends. It's the people who go to their religion. It's all of this stuff. It's the Council on Foreign Relations. It's the World Economic Forum. All of these policies are benefiting the agenda or the personal finances, the agenda of these institutions or the personal finances of these billionaire cronies that are out there. Everything about it is corruption. And it's kind of interesting that Javier Milei is one of the reasons that he is struggling to win re-election is because there's been a lot of corruption scandals in Argentina. I haven't talked about this. It's not important up until this point. It wasn't really important for us to know about it. But the reality is that he has huge corruption scandals in Argentina with his sister who runs his campaign and so forth. And in that regard, he is a corrupt SOB just like Trump is and just like Bessent. So this is this looting class that God has put in control of our country as judgment, I think. And that's what this looks like. So the $20 billion question is, why is Washington backing Argentina's Milei? This is from The New American. And they said, at the White House on Tuesday, Trump announced the $20 billion. And again, Bessent filled in the details and said, well, no, actually, we're going to give him $40 billion worth of stuff with the private people.
There's these really dumb memes that float around where it's just, some cartoon character made up to look like a gangster or something like that. And the caption usually goes something along the lines of, screw it, another 20 trillion to Israel or something like that. It's reminding me of just money for everyone and anything everyone. Except the American people. Yeah.
America first is really America last.
We have the absolute worst kind of socialism, the fact that none of it goes to the American people, so we don't even get the short-term benefits of it, and we just send it all out to everyone else, and the short-term and long-term costs are all here for us.
Yes, that's right.
And it's a step farther than that. If it were just giving money to them, that would be one thing, but this is giving money to them so that they can undercut us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And somebody said, if it was accidental, they would every once in a while do something that would be in our favor. But it's not accidental at all. It's deliberate. So Milei's coalition is reeling from several corruption scandals, and New American has a link to those if you want to read. I'm not sure which ones they're talking about. I know firsthand of some of them. I shouldn't firsthand. I've read of some of them.
That's right. We're involved in Argentina's corruption.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we're going to own it. Non-interventionists at home could have winced as the self-styled champion of America First openly interfered in another nation's politics. But then it was fiscal conservatives' turn to recoil when the president unveiled his rationale for sending billions abroad. Pressed on how the arrangement would benefit the U.S., Trump offered the kind of airy idealism that's usually reserved for commencement speeches, rather than for billion-dollar commitments, says the New American. Asked again what was in it for America, Trump, with candor rarely heard in Washington, said, we don't have to do it. It's not going to make a big difference for our country, but it will for South America. And again, is this altruism? Who's paying the price for his altruism? Well, the American farmers and the American small businesses and the middle class are paying that price. This is kind of interesting because when the New American says this with candor that is rarely heard in Washington, when we get to his foreign policy coming up here, Caitlin Johnstone says the same thing about Trump when she's talking about what's going on with the Gaza thing and talking about the fact that he says hey, these Miriam Adelson and Sheldon Adelson gave me $600 billion, and look at what I'm doing for them. And they would give me money, and they would come back and say, now we want more from you. Now we want more from you. They're always coming back to the White House more than anybody else. And just saying it openly. It's just open corruption, boasting about it. And somehow that gives him immunity with his followers because he tells everybody that. I said that about Dave Chappelle. I had a joke about that. He said the thing about Trump was he would come out of these meetings with all these people, the insiders, the club that he's a part of, and he'd tell people, you won't believe what's going on in there. They're doing this, this, and this. And then he said, and then the guy will turn right back around and go in there and join him in it. And that's what's happening here. When you look at this Argentina thing, as the New American says, it's a candor that you rarely hear out of Washington. And Caitlin Johnson said, I detest this guy and everything that he does, but you got to give him, the one thing I like about it is that, and she doesn't see it as a positive, it's just part of his personality. He tells you the corruption that's going on in Washington. He continues doing it, but he tells you right up front, they don't even bother to deny it anymore. So what is it? What is it? Well, they don't mention what I think is one of the key things in here. I mentioned before the connections that he's got with Chabad Lubavitch, other things like that are going on that Trump.
That just doesn't sound like a real name.
Anyway, I think that it is really, when we look at what is happening with this, when Javier Milei went to the White House, what he did was he wanted Trump to know that he nominated him for what Trump so deeply craves, the Nobel Peace Prize. So he didn't just say, I nominated you for the Nobel Peace Prize. He made a copy of the letter that he wrote to the Nobel Peace Prize committee, and he put it in a frame.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yes.
Is Trump going to put it on the White House fridge? Look what my son did.
That's worth $20 billion, and here's the presentation.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I like that, yes.
I can definitely read. I'm really reading it.
And when he did this letter, Mr. President, your settlement in the Middle East wasn't done. So we have to do a new letter
Let's do it.
to include that, because this is a very important...
You'll have to add one extra sentence.
Exactly.
That's great. Thank you very much. This is such a great statement. Thank you very much.
Yeah. What have I said for the longest time? It's the Nobel Peace Prize, but he spells peace with an I. A piece of this, a piece of that. A cut for the big guy. Yeah, that's what's really happening with all this stuff. But it's
A
really
historic moment, the cheapest a politician has ever been bought for. $40 billion for a framed photo.
Deal of the century. Yeah. I think America's been framed. We've been set up. And this guy is coming in for the kill. Well, let's look at some of the comments here before we take a break.
That's right. We've got real Jason Barker, and thank you very much, Jason. And of course, you can find Jason on Knights of the Storm and knightsofthestorm.com, where they have the schedule for their show, our show, Guard's show, Tony's show, many shows. So check out knightsofthestorm.com. Mm-hmm. He says, let's get some fuel in the tank, folks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'm Marty. Good to see you, Marty. Hope you're well. Thank you as well. It says, move the needle. That's right. Dougalug says, thank you, and thank you, Dougalug.
Wish I could move the needle. The hypodermic needle. I wish I could move it away. But
sadly.
Yeah.
It says, thank you, David and Sons. Hey, that's me. Let's be sure to hit the like buttons. Yes, wherever you're watching, whenever you're watching, please drop a like on the show. It does help. As cliche as it is to say it at this point. IRS Machine Gun. Once again, always a scary name. Thank you very much. It says, let's keep it going. SFlow0818, sheep on the left, sheep on the right, stuck in the middle with you. That's right. I'm Marty. Scott Adams has to say that in order to deal with the truth that he keeps hidden from us, but not from himself. Inside, he knows he's screwed up. Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah. That gasoline, all politicians do for work, quote unquote, is to figure out how to launder and steal our tax dollars. Well, it's hard work laundering all that money, stealing all of it. You've got to give him some time off. Also, real quickly, I want to let you know, I don't know if you got to see it. Jason Barker put together a little AI song about he's been working on it for about a week, so I don't want to trivialize by calling it little, but put together a song about the vaccine.
Oh,
and it's I sent Lance the link, so maybe we can play that later.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'd like to do that. I'd like to see that. Yeah,
Lance actually has it ready. Huh? He's saying he can get it ready.
Yeah, that's the thing about AI. The time that's involved in it is just, no, that's not right. Do this, and it doesn't follow the prompt again. So just keep trying it, and then it's like, throwing stuff against the wall. And finally, it might do something kind of like what you want. That's the frustration about you.
I found it's really helpful for creating specific elements. You get an element from it here, and you cut that out, and you start pasting things together. Or, you can make, lower thirds graphics and things like that fairly easily.
I haven't figured out how to use it productively yet. It just is a waste of time.
Lance says he's actually got the AI song ready to go.
Okay, good. Let's play that. Let's play it. I'd like to see that.
I am thrilled to report that the FDA has authorized the Pfizer vaccine. We have given Pfizer and other companies a great deal of money, hoping this would be the outcome, and it was.
That was Jason Barker's picture like 5 years ago.
In the fancy clinic lobby with free coffee and a grin, they roll up your sleeve and say this jab's your new best friend. But plot twist, folks, it's loaded with a lifetime guarantee. of mystery, ailments galore, brought to you by Big P. Jibby jibby jab, jibby jab jab. Off a rocket launching straight to the lab. Jibby jab, jibby jab jab. Sick forever after cha-ching, what a fact.
We got Fauci singing.
Who knew he was so talented?
Yeah.
Suddenly you're wheezing with a rash that glows at night. Your toes start tap dancing on their own. What a fright. Back to the dock you shuffle, wallet open wide. More jabs, more pills, more tests. Oh, what a ride. Jibby jibby jab, jibby jab jab. Hook like a fish on farmer's golden crab. Jibby jab, jibby jab jab. Hospitals high fiving, counting all that grab. Jibby jab. Politicians posing pretty with their farmer-funded yachts. Mandates flying faster than a squirrel on Red Bull shots. They swear
Is that Ivanka?
for your health, but wink at the camera's eye. Your endless doctor visits, that's their golden pie. Random violent shaking, can't even drive your car. Brain fog so thick, even forget where you are. Lifetime subscriptions to the Sickness Club Elite, while CEOs toast champagne, dancing to the beat. Jibby jibby jab, jibby jab jab. That shot's a money magnet pulling in the drab. Jibby jab, jibby jab jab. Rich off your sniffles, yeah, it's all a stab. Jibby jab. So hail the mighty Jibby, the jab that keeps on giving to everyone but you. Now that's satirical living. Jibby jibby jab echoes in the hall, but the joke's on us all.
And we can never let people forget.
Starts right now.
In San Francisco, we take preparedness for earthquakes seriously. We've seen the difference it makes. From 1906 to Loma Prieta, we have learned that preparation saves lives and property.
Bay Area cities getting ready for the chance of a major earthquake. The preparedness, including today's Great California Shakeout earthquake drill. Good evening, I'm Amma Dates.
And I'm Dan Ashley. Thanks for joining us. And just an hour before the drill, a 3.1 earthquake struck centered in Berkeley.
So we sent ABC 7 News I-Team reporter Melanie Woodrow to find out how safe the buildings in San Francisco really are.
Yeah, she joins us in the newsroom to explain what she's learning tonight. Melanie?
Dan and Amma, come December, owners of thousands of presumed concrete buildings in San Francisco will be asked to take part in a screening program. In the meantime, soft-story building owners have been overwhelmingly compliant in making sure their structures are safe.
The devastation of the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake is not long forgotten.
In a lot of ways, the Loma Prieta earthquake sort of woke us up to our seismic risk.
Laurel Matthews is an earthquake program manager for San Francisco's Office of Resilience and Capital Planning. Around 2013, Matthews says San Francisco instituted a mandatory retrofit program for wood-framed soft-story buildings that were 3 or more stories with 5 or more units. A soft-story building is a building where on the ground floor there's more open space than above the ground floor. In San Francisco, Matthews says that usually means on the ground floor there's a parking garage or business, and above the ground floor there's apartments. The buildings were in danger of damage or collapse. The program has been hugely successful.
About 40,000 housing units are now in safer buildings because of this program. The program is currently at 95% compliance.
The remaining 5% have engaged with the Department of Building Inspection in some way. In December, the city will begin focusing on concrete buildings built before around the year 2000.
Some of the concrete buildings built before that date can be a bit brittle and don't have enough steel reinforcement to resist the sideways forces of a really big earthquake.
There's currently no mandatory retrofit program for concrete buildings. Rather, the city has developed a screening program for these types of buildings. The screening will also look at a type of building called tilt-ups, which are one-story commercial and warehouse-type buildings.
Building owners will have until June of 2027 to submit building information to the Department of Building Inspection.
With the information, Matthews says the city hopes to have a better idea of next steps and whether a mandatory retrofit program similar to the soft-story one would be the right approach.
Matthews estimates that approximately 4,000 building owners of concrete and/or tilt-ups will be asked to participate in that screening program. She says soft-story buildings were addressed first because they were seen as low-hanging fruit. Tenants didn't have to move out, and the cost for retrofitting was relatively low compared to the building's value. In the newsroom for the IT, Melanie Woodrow, ABC 7 News.
All right, Melanie, thank you. Today is International Shakeout Day. The Tech Interactive, that's in San Jose, hosted an on-site shakeout drill with more than 550 students. Geologists taught them what causes an earthquake, and emergency management and Red Cross officials showed them what to do in an earthquake or other emergency situations. They also took part in the official drop, cover, and hold on drill. The shakeout comes just one day before the anniversary of the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake.
A demonstration in San Francisco of how the city is prepared for a major earthquake. The newly renovated Pump Station 2 was unveiled today. It's been seismically upgraded and can now withstand a 7.9 magnitude earthquake. The station is a key part of the city's dedicated emergency firefighting water system, the only one of its kind in America.
Should we have a massive earthquake and our primary water mains fail, we can use our EFWS system. And should the earthquake be large enough that some of those mains fail, which we don't anticipate, but we plan for, we can isolate the break, shut off the water, and turn on Pump Station 2 and charge the system so that we have sufficient water to extinguish fires.
Firefighters tested some of the system's pumps today. They connect to a 135-mile-long pipeline running under the city that can draw water from reservoirs and the San Francisco Bay. And if you need help preparing for an earthquake, we have resources for you on abc7news.com/preparenorcal.
New developments tonight. The saga of former San Mateo County Sheriff Christina Corpus continues in San Francisco federal court 2 days after the Board of Supervisors voted to fire her. In a lawsuit, Corpus claims the county violated her due process rights, and today her attorney asked the judge to reinstate her immediately. But Corpus is raising many of the same issues in another lawsuit filed in state court. And Judge Vince Chabria said that that's normally not proper to have the same case running at both the state and federal level. He has asked the attorneys for further briefs and scheduled another hearing for next month.
Across the Bay Area and nation, millions of Americans are planning to hold another No Kings protest on Saturday.
ABC 7 News political reporter Monica Madden is tracking the developments for us on this. And Monica, these demonstrations come as there are growing concerns about President Trump deploying the National Guard to San Francisco and other cities.
That's right, Dan and Amma. Of course, California sued the Trump administration over its deployment of the Guard to Los Angeles during those June ICE protests. And today, at an unrelated press conference, Governor Gavin Newsom told reporters that he believes the president is illegally trying to use federal troops as his own personal police force.
His latest assertion that he was going to come to San Francisco, on what basis? He didn't even claim. There's no pretext anymore. Let's disabuse ourselves that there has to be a pretext with Donald Trump, that there's anything that would justify that. There's no existing protest at a federal building. There's no operation that's being impeded. I guess it's just a training ground for the President of the United States. It is grossly illegal. It's immoral. It's rather delusional.
There are no protests happening in San Francisco right now, but there are 3 different No Kings gatherings planned in the city on Saturday and dozens more across the Bay Area. You can see the massive turnout from past No Kings protests here over the summer. Now, Republican leaders have slammed the demonstrations as, quote, anti-American, with House Speaker Mike Johnson calling it the Hate America rally. Organizers are expecting thousands at the downtown San Francisco one just alone and say their intention is to peacefully push back against the White House.
We do not believe in one person or one group of people, such as billionaires, controlling our country. That's not what our nation was built upon. And to threaten sending in the National Guard or anything of that matter, that just means that we're effective in our organizing for our event.
A spokesperson for SFPD says the city has a long tradition of First Amendment expression that officers will facilitate while also having the resources ready in case issues arise to, of course, make sure the public is safe. Now, the president's calls for sending in the National Guard to San Francisco did not appear to be directly related to these No Kings protests coming up, but it's worth noting that there will be troops at Saturday's protests in other states, including Texas, where its governor is deploying members of the Guard to Austin. Dan, Amma.
Okay, Monica, thank you for that update. A prominent Silicon Valley venture capitalist resigned from the board of the Salesforce Foundation in protest. It's because of CEO Mark Benioff calling on President Trump to deploy the National Guard to San Francisco. In an email obtained by our media partners at SF Standard, Ron Conway said he is, quote, shocked and disappointed by Benioff's comments. This as the Dreamforce convention is happening in the city. Comics Kumail Nanjiani and Ilana Glazer have both canceled their performances scheduled to close out the convention tonight.
San Francisco Representative Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker Emerita, also released a statement today in response to President Trump's threats of sending in the National Guard. She says in part, quote, our city takes great pride in the steps we've taken to significantly increase public safety and reduce crime in partnership with community and state officials without the interference of a president seeking headlines, end quote.
Turning now to the U.S. government shutdown. You are taking a look at the shutdown clock, now in its 16th day, making it the third longest in history. And it will likely continue into next week. A divided Senate failed again to advance the Republican-led stopgap funding bill after a 10th vote. Democrats are refusing to join the GOP unless better health care funding is assured. Republicans need 60 votes to advance the bill that would fund the government through late next month.
And many federal workers are not getting paychecks during this shutdown, and among them are the TSA agents who screen passengers at the airports.
ABC 7 News reporter Ansar Hassan is following the story to find out how a local food bank is making sure they can put food on their tables.
Here you go. So there's 2 boxes right here. Make sure you guys grab some eggs. There you go. Thank you. All right. Drive safe. Have a good day.
After their Thursday morning shift, TSA employees at the Oakland-San Francisco Bay Airport stopped by to pick up food provided by the Alameda County Community Food Bank.
I think one of the big challenges in general with not being paid is essentially that your whole livelihood is at risk. Right?
Reggie Young is the food bank's executive director. He says just like during the last shutdown, they were contacted about meeting the need. Bags and boxes filled with rice and beans, eggs and fresh produce were available for the 300 TSA employees who work at the Oakland airport.
You have to deal with rent, you have to deal with medicine, whatever other issues that you have to deal with. We want to ensure that food is one of the things that you don't have to worry about.
For the past 3 weeks, TSA employees have been coming to work, but they aren't getting paid.
Due to the government shutdown, all of our TSA officers, as well as FAA air traffic controllers, and certain CBP officers are considered essential employees, so they are working without pay throughout this government shutdown.
TSA employees were not allowed to be interviewed, but earlier this month at a roundtable discussion hosted by East Bay Congresswoman Latifah Simon about the government shutdown, TSA employees spoke of the hardship many are facing.
We just don't want this to become a prolonged fight because we don't know how we're going to pay to stay in the fight.
The Alameda Labor Council estimates that there are 78,000 federal workers in the Bay Area. The highest number are in Alameda County at 10,400, including these TSA workers who are already feeling the impact of missing paychecks.
We have families. A lot of our TSOs live paycheck to paycheck. They have childcare issues. They got to show up at 3 o'clock in the morning to fly out the traveling public.
The food bank says it is ready to help out as long as the shutdown drags on. At OAK, Ansar Hassan, ABC 7 News.
California is joining a multi-state coalition to sue the Trump administration over its cancellation of the Solar for All program. The $7 billion investment was created in 2022 as part of the Biden-era Inflation Reduction Act. Solar for All was designed to help low-income households install solar panels on their homes. The EPA announced the cancellation of the program in August, and several attorneys general say that is illegal.
In California, we stand to lose almost $250 million, $250 million. By cutting off these congressionally obligated funds, Trump's EPA is violating its contracts with each of our states, acting far beyond the scope of the agency's authority.
The challenge involves 2 lawsuits, which mark the 43rd and 44th consecutive lawsuits California has filed against the Trump administration this year. The EPA said it doesn't comment on pending legislation.
The National Rifle Association is suing California over the state's ban on Glock-style pistols. Governor Newsom signed the ban into law last week. It targets handguns that can be converted into automatic weapons. Gun rights organizations argue the ban violates the Second Amendment.
Businesses in the East Bay broken into overnight. See the crimes caught on camera.
We're following plans to bring the university known
Hello.
Hello. If you're talking, I can't hear you yet.
You said what? Can you hear me now?
I didn't hear you talking, so yeah, sorry.
What about now?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
All right. So,
Yeah, so you just asked me about Jacobins.
we're live, by the way, just letting you know. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I don't care unless you care.
No, I don't. Just letting you know.
I'm more sincere. Okay, so you asked me about Jacobins, and I'm not gonna lie, like I didn't know much about them like until recently. I mean, I knew that they were Masons, and I knew that there was something that happened, maybe, but with history at least, if you read like I don't know, like somebody that would be on the History Channel or something, right? Like they undermine this type of history. They'll be like, "Oh, the Jacobins, are supposedly who caused the French Revolution, but that really isn't true," or what, you know what I mean? They kind of do like weird stuff like that. So, what makes you like instantly dismissive of any, type of idea like that, and it's very few and far in between that you find a historian who's willing to go down that route where it's like, okay, we're going to go the Masonic route, where they're infiltrating institutions. And there's very few people that are like clergy at that time that wrote books on the topic, right? And you can find those guys, but the average historian isn't. They're going to denounce that person, and basically say that they're nuts or a conspiracy theorist or whatever. And
I think I am one of the ultimate historical conspiracy theorists of all time, and I'm not going to get into it now, but like, yeah, that's true. Like when I was every time I've studied into that stuff, like it starts pointing at a very particular group of people that we're not allowed to talk about. So
every time, and
yeah,
like
yeah,
what's
and
going
like,
on,
and I'm literally like the person that has tried to debunk that so many times, and like every single time, I'm like, it literally points
you
at one
can't,
group
dude.
of people.
It's like if you're a serious historian, and I consider myself to be one, and like, I didn't go to school for it or something, but I care about it, and I care about it, and it was my best subject in school, and I mean, there'd be times I'd be half asleep in history class, and I'd be the only one that popped up and like have the answer to the question. You know what I mean? Like I'm half asleep. The whole class is like wide awake listening to the teacher, and I'm just like I pop up and answer. You know what I mean? We're just like, how do you know that? I'm just like, because I like history. So it's like. But you're absolutely right. Like anytime you look back at this particular type of, especially French Revolution, and what's funny is I grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and if you know anything about Fayetteville, it's named after Lafayette, right? Like the French Revolutionary Mason. um, and there's a book on this. I think it's called "Hero of Two Worlds," and it's talking about his influence in the French Revolution and the American Revolution. So if you care about America and our history and how we like came to be, and like I think I've said this to you before, and like it does offend people when I say this, but America is a Freemasonic experiment, and because it is. All the ideas that make up the American quote dream these are Masonic. This was a Masonic dream, you know.
And that didn't really hit me so hard, but then when I understood that Freemasonry is basically like crypto Judaism, then it's like, oh, I get it. So it's like I didn't know that Columbus was Jewish until recently, and now I'm like, oh, now
Mhm.
maybe now I do want to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day rather than Columbus Day.
Well, I mean, you know, it's a little funny, like, you know, I'm not like, and I try to make this kind of clear, because I am a big proponent of Vladimir Moss, and there's a lot of people that aren't, and that's fine with me. But you know, Moss always tries to get this point across: is that an Orthodox Christian can't be, you know, anti-Jew or whatever, you know, and we're not, because in reality, the prophets were Jews in the sense that, you know, they were given the promise, and that those who follow Christ are true Jews. It's that, you know, the scriptures kind of make this distinction that the Pharisees weren't true Jews, right? So they've taken the title and of what that meant, and that means God's chosen people, right? And they've obfuscated it and taking it to mean something
So
else, and now there's like a kabbalistic interpretation on the word, right? And I think that's dangerous. I think that, because if you have an outright rejection, sort of like you know, the party in Germany, for instance, that came from the Tully Society, it's like they wanted to have the same kabbalistic scheme, just in another route. And my, you know, and there's debate over whether that was, really a true war between really going on at that level, or if that was all kind of just a staged act. And my gut's telling me it was more staged, and it's really like the drama's played out, you know, for the people to watch. But really what's going on is, um something completely different, you know. I don't know.
it's more accurate to say from a Christian standpoint that we're anti-heresy more than we are anti-Jewish or something. But again, like
Hmm.
the term Jewish basically doesn't really have any meaning in most senses of the word because it's been used as like this psyop essentially. So like the truth of the matter is like almost everything we know is basically a psyop when it comes to like what Judaism is. And so and with that, what even heresy is, right?
Well, I'll tell you something. When I have conversations with, you know, the German revisionist, we'll just call them that, right? With the German revisionist, they don't even realize it, but they're the most bootlicking people of them all. They're bootlicking Soviets so hard, and they don't even, you know, they have no clue that that's the case. But it's like, that's the propaganda that you're picking up on, because who funded Lenin, you know, and the Bolsheviks and all that, and who you know, because if you look into the Bolshevik Revolution, the very first thing that Lenin does is he pulls all the Russian troops out of war with Germany. Okay. So he pulls them out of war with Germany, and then Germany gives them all these, like, this funding and land, and, you know, so it's like very obvious. Yeah, and there's been documentation that's come out. It's like Lenin was a German agent. Um, so how anti-J could they really be? You know what I mean? They made coins with both the swastika and the you know, Star of David on them. There was banknotes early on in the Bolshevik Revolution with the symbol on it, both symbols are Masonic symbols, you know. So it's kind of a joke when you really look at it, and people fall into the dialectic because they don't understand sort of psyops, right? They don't understand psyops. They don't understand how masonry works. They don't understand, like, what it means to infiltrate something, or like, what these workers' parties really were. that developed into political parties and regimes and dictatorships. Really, these were all. It was like a secret societies. A secret society put their guys in place as the agent provocateur / leader of these governments, and then created these wars basically to fund what would later become a global police force. You know what I mean? I think that's what we're kind of seeing out in the world, and people have, like, it's not funny, it really isn't. But
So you reminded me of something. So like I think I sent you that thing about Dyer recently. Like me and you've been trading stuff about Dyer. And hey to Avian, I think if you're in the chat, if you want to come up and talk, maybe we can arrange it. But just let me know if you're still there. I don't know. I haven't really had any viewers, so but just Avian, if you're there, just hit me up and let me know if you're really there or not. So anyways, I wanted to tell you about this thing because I read this book a long time ago. I didn't finish it. I still have it, and I need to finish it. But it's this famous book by some like really super liberal guy. But it's called
yeah,
Citizens. It's called the French. It's called the Chronicle of the French Revolution, and it has like all these letters and stuff written by people who actually lived through it. So it's like poor people, religious people, rich people, royalty, all these different people, like telling their side of like what was going on. You know what I mean? And I'll just tell
yeah,
you,
yeah.
I'll just tell you a little bit about it. So it's like basically like it says that he challenged the romanticized views of the revolution as a triumph march towards liberty and modernity, instead portraying pre-revolutionary France under the ancient regime as already vibrant, innovative, and reform-oriented, where the revolution's radicalism fueled by a quote-unquote addiction to change and organized killing to achieve political ends. And so,
Mhm.
I want to mention. I ask it to like. I asked the AI to like give me some of the breakdowns of this because this book is literally like 1,000 pages or 1,100. It's a giant book. So like I couldn't. It would take me to do this manually. Would take me like a ridiculous amount of time, honestly. So, um, it kind of talks about like new men, which is like discuss. It's like emerging elites and social mobility. So like you had like a huge middle class. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
I remember one thing specifically. They talked about the church's role, and like the Catholic Church's role was like very complex, right? Like because you had all these like tariffs and stuff, and like all these people who were like taxing stuff within the country. So like everybody was trying to cut out a piece of like the newfound wealth, right? So like everybody was taxing each other. Like every time you went from one city to another, everybody's like adding on tax. So like by the time it went from like one side of the country to another, something like if you try to send like a loaf of bread across the country, like you the price might be 10 times more money, right? Because everybody's just
Yeah.
corrupt, like trying to get their cut, right? And
Yeah.
and and the church was like trying to remain neutral and trying to like do all this stuff, but there was like obviously, I'm sure if you look into it, I'm sure there's a lot of subversion, right? And then they talk about like basically the economics drove people insane, right? And so it's like uh, you have like cover there. Basically, there's like everybody's like looking for opportunity, and then there's all this like economic strife, like I'm talking about, right? And then basically everybody's going against the king. Um, Basically, the Enlightenment had like really fucked with people's head and made them start to see
Question everything that they've ever, question the church. They come up with terms like priestcraft. You got Voltaire out there, like basically lying and slandering anything that had anything to do with, any type of morality or religious belief. People were being, you didn't know what to think, really, because everything you had learned up to that point, is now being questioned. and we're still dealing with this overpending progressive, so-called progressive, like question of how should we be governed, or how how do we function, and is the old way really effective, and you know and it's like now we're like perpetually stuck in this revolutionary mindset. And the reality is, it's like you're dealing with people that are prideful, and it's like the same thought that led man to eat from the knowledge of good and evil, like from the tree, is the same mind that's trying to produce a utopian ideology, right? Um, it's like you lose paradise, so now you have to recreate it in your image.
Well, and it's something that I have forgotten about, but like a lot of the founding fathers, like Jefferson and other ones, and I used to kind of like romanticize this as well, but like they really looked at the French Revolution as like an inspiration. Like, oh, all these people are overthrowing the king. They're like,
Yep.
becoming a full man. They're trying to establish themselves as like, an independent person. I mean, it's a very, I mean, I don't think
This
that a
was
lot of
Marx's
people.
idea.
Well, yeah, it was like proto-Marxism, basically. Well, it's really Luciferianism, but that's a really complicated thing to get into. But like, yeah, it's basically like a very complicated version of like.
Well, it's like uh, the inspiration of the French Revolution on what Marxism would come to be, because you're talking about a guy who was like looking at everybody else that were revolutionary thinkers, and he was saying, okay, well, how can you solve the problem if you don't know the question, right? And it's like, what's the question? He's like, well, it's the economics. If you don't study economics and history, then you'll never have the solution. That was his whole theory, right? Well, after his studying of it, he subverts it and puts it through his like satanic filter. And once he puts it through his satanic filter, he learns a way how to manipulate the masses with rhetoric. But it involves, like, you work for the boss, and the boss owns the production of means or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? He has all these terms, these buzz terms he's using to kind of trap the person into saying, like, the old way is no good. Now I'm going to sell you on this new product, which is, communism. And really, what he's masking behind all of it is like self-loathing and hate towards other people. Like, he really hates other people, and he hates religion, and he hates goodness, really, in the world. And taking that out, he, it's about his failures, really. So instead of like reflecting on his own failures, he has to see the failure of society and the church and God and everything else. It's everybody but himself. And so this leads to this delusion that, you know, he's like this perfect guy or something with this genius ideology that's going to change the world, this revolutionary mindset. And maybe in some ways, like, you could say outright he was correct in some ways, but it sounds all right. But in practice, we see how it turns out. It just flips the world upside down. I don't know. It's crazy stuff, man.
I'm trying to like pull together the stuff that I had because you're kind of reminding me of a lot of things that I was looking at, and so I wanted to say first of all, like again, this is written by like a really liberal person. They basically said that like violence wasn't like a side effect; it was like the engine of the revolution. So they're basically saying like it was like a bloodlust, essentially. Like it was like literally like I mean, he doesn't use these terms, but it's literally like hell on earth. Like these people were just like bloodthirsty maniacs, basically, running around, like just chopping people up, and
Yeah.
and again, I think that everybody, if you're really interested, to go read this book, because like I read about half of it, like as much, like, because I was trying not to skip ahead or like go around, but like it's a really big book, but it's very, very like detailed, like extremely detailed about like all these little, like, because it even touches like what was going on like in the Middle Ages in France and stuff. So like kind of gives you like a little bit of a background, so it's not like just throwing you in like 1790.
Right. So in other words, it's like, does it show you like what the monarchy was like?
It's basically like it's not really pro monarchy, but it's definitely like very much like this is not. It wasn't about freeing people as much as people pretended it to be, essentially. You know what I mean? It was more about,
Exactly. And that's the same thing with the Russian Revolution. And it wasn't just natural, like this natural thing, because this is how like how historians kind of like push it to people as like, oh, like the French Revolution was just like people tired of like these evil priests and these evil royals that were just holding them back from being who they really could be. And it's like, not really. You know what I mean? What it really was, you had a bunch of miserable guys that failed in life. So in their failure, they thought, well, we'll just like overthrow, like no kings, no morals, like these weird, we still have that sort of same mindset within the, eat the rich, like this type, it's like that type of saying going on, like you're dealing with these like super psycho liberal progressives,
well, and again, it's funny because like this guy was not is not pro church or pro anything, but he still has to admit. So I'm just gonna read a little few like excerpts of this like summary that it gave me, because I asked it some questions to like break it down, so I don't have to go grab this book and go through the whole fucking thing. But so the civil constitution of the clergy in 1790 made clergy civil servants required to swear loyalty to the state. So again, like there was a lot of corruption within the church. I think everybody knows that for sure, right? So they just went
Yeah.
in there and they just started passing laws saying, okay, now the clergy is like directly or like a secular. So it's like secular, like basically totally secularized the clergy. And again, like it sounds radical, but this is what they've done to all churches in the United States. Like once you register as a 501c3, you're basically like an agent of the state. So it's like this is basically coming straight out of the French Revolution, in my opinion. You know what I mean? So like,
No, it is. That's what Masonry's whole goal, the Jacobins' whole trip was infiltrating the churches, wolves in sheep's clothing, right? It's like you're infiltrating the churches, you're becoming a so-called priest, you're really an atheist, right? Or a deist or something, that you're not whatever you're claiming to be. And you're slowly but surely subverting the teachings. And you're doing it subtly, right? And it's like,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's like so then they say that people tried to refuse it, and then they took all the church property. It was nationalized and then sold off to private institutions to like balance the budget, right? And that didn't work.
Mm.
So then in 2 3 years later, they're just trying to de-Christianize the entire country, and they basically said that like we're going to cut ties with the Vatican, which again, I'm not a Catholic, I don't like the Vatican either, but it's like then they said like priests have to get married or they'll get their head cut off, and then basically like so like within a 3 year period, they like totally like basically destroyed all religious like.
Right. And now what was this under? This was under the the god of atheism, which is reason.
Right. Well, no. This
So
this is the next point. It says sentiousness of religion. Sententious. I don't know what this word means. I think it just means like sentious. So like meaning like sentient. Sentious religion of universal brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they said, but then they basically all got paranoid and started like cutting everybody's head off. So like they on the surface they're saying, "Oh, we care about everybody," but then they just like
Yeah, this like syncretistic, false piety, early stage ecumenism, one world religion, new age type movement going on. That we're seeing today. Like it's like we just have new titles for it, really.
And see here's a big
But
key. Here's a big key. Acts of Faith, October 1789 to July 1790. Religious and constitutional reforms. And guess what they were? The emancipation of Protestant and Jews, allowing them to have freedom of worship and rights as citizens while maintaining Catholicism as the religious state. So basically, they secularized the religious state, which was under the Catholicism, and then said, okay, this is just like a figure. This is just like like an aesthetic. We're going to keep a Catholic aesthetic, and then let people do whatever the fuck they want, essentially. So it's like
that's exactly what Stalin did, right? It's like that's what Sergianism is. It's no longer that the church and the state have some sort of synergy together where the bishop could go to the monarch and give him advice. Now it's the state is an entity in itself that is more important than the individual, and now the entity of the state represents the party, and the party now controls the institution that is the church. There is no mystical body that is Christ, right? Which Catholicism had already been going in that direction, right? When it broke from Orthodoxy, but now it goes a step further because now you're having this union between the anti-Christian state and the anti-Christian church, right? But the anti-Christian church itself is what gave birth to Protestantism, and the Protestants found refuge in the Masonic Lodge, and that's exactly why there's a close relationship. Why we see today that such terms as Judeo-Christian, right? Because you had the Protestants going against the Catholics. Where are they going to go to discuss how they're going to combat the evil Catholics, which the Catholics were the evil. They were doing all these weird things like indulgences, and the hierarchy itself had been subverted and corrupt and all this other stuff. So they're like, everything's forgeries. We're going to do it our way. We're going to go to the Masonic Lodge. We're going to get taught by the Jays, which they were, and that's why to this day they're Masons. It's important too to realize that in the scriptures Christ talks about it. Away from me, you who practice lawlessness. What is lawlessness? Protest. It's a form of protest, right? So the Protestants are protesting the church, but they're and they were right to protest Catholicism because it had gone in a weird, very strange direction. Instead of returning back to orthodoxy, they create their own church in their own ways, and they push alchemical and Kabbalistic understandings of the scriptures because they had nowhere else to go with it. They couldn't go back to the original teachings of the saints because they've rejected this form already. Now there has to be a revolutionary enlightenment-like thought introduced to the church, which descends it into magical type thinking. So now you have this once saved, always saved type doctrine developing, which is Kabbalistic. That's what it is.
Yeah, and it just talks about how. Yeah, I agree with you, and that's what I'm trying to get to is like trying to see if there's any because I'm sure that like if you by the way if you do have any sources on like direct stuff like that about Jacobins etc. like let me know because I haven't looked into that, but I'm pretty sure if I find it and combine it with like this kind of stuff, like it'll pretty much tell a much more realistic
Well, I
story
have an
about what's going on.
article on this. I have an article on the French Revolution. I have an article on all this stuff, and this is something that I was supposed to cover on my own show, right? American Golgotha. That's what the show was going to be about, but I just stopped it, and I just been adding this stuff to my book because I just feel like I don't know, like I feel like I'm wasting stuff, kind of. Not that I'm wasting it, but I could just be using my efforts more, I
Well,
guess,
no, I think
to
that it's a
some
good
more
idea
solid.
to like just get everything all compiled, like pull excerpts from all these thousands of pages of stuff and like compile them together and then organize your thoughts on it. And then when you go and present it, it'll be like a narrative rather than that actually is like cohesive rather than what we
Right,
usually
because
do.
I'm
But
like hopping around because I mean I'm seeing things I could see in my mind, like in my mind's eye, dude. I could see it
no, I
all,
know. Well, that's why a lot of people get mad at me because like I'm doing a lot of conjecture and stuff like that. But again, like, look, I mean, I've read a lot more history than most people, so like I feel like I have the right to do that personally. Like, I don't know many people other than like you, Machine, and maybe like Pill Eater that I've ever met that have read more history than I have. So it's like, I mean, look, I haven't read all of history, but like I've skimmed like as quite a lot. Do you know what I mean? Like quite a lot more than the average person. So like I feel like, and the thing is this, like, it's one thing to read history, but it's another to interpret it. So like I haven't seen much interpretation, so like that's what I'm focused on. So if other people want to go and
Yeah.
just whatever, like I'm actually
Your interpretations are the most important part, because you could read something. One guy could take a piece of history and, give you the textbook, history book answer. And it just doesn't actually give you what actually happened and why we're here today. There's a really important book that I sent to Machine, and it's by a humanist. And the reason why it's important is because these people are humanist, right? These like the people like pushing for the whole new world order. They have a humanist mindset, this utopian ideology, and because reason is their god, and the light of Lucifer is reason and science, and this is the everything that we see in the mindset of like the common person, and which is really ironic because you have all these kind of truthers out here that fully reject Christianity and God and all these other things, but they give in to sort of the I guess the dialectic of the secret societies that they supposedly are going against, which doesn't make sense to me, but it is what it is,
And if you don't
sorry. I'm trying to put this. I want to put this in the chat here because I'm trying to find my own channel right now. It's just Gland. Because I want to send you this video that I have in the background because I'm not going to have time to really play it all. But I'm also going to put this for the people who are watching this right now. But everybody should go see. I'm trying to put this. I want to put this in the chat.
So this guy's talking about Trotskyism. I see you got a video on Trotskyism here.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So I just want people to have that because I think it's a very, very important. Like I'm not saying everybody has to go watch it, but I think everybody should at least have this stored because this guy is who Pill Eater learned about Trotskyism from, basically. And Trotskyism is basically like the hidden version of like communism that has like overtaken the whole world that wasn't communist, allegedly. So what I mean by that is like America, England are all Trotskyist, because they hide the fact that they're actually a communist, right? So
Right. And that's something, people might kind of scoff at this, but Bill Cooper talks about that a lot in his radio show and his book Behold the Pale Horse. He also had interviews where he made that statement, and this was back, late 80s, early 90s. Guy was talking about the United States and the Soviets being one then, and that they never were against each other, and that's absolutely true. You can see photos of Churchill, Truman, and Stalin all doing Masonic handshakes together, and what's going on there, And he made a statement too. Cooper makes a statement. He says that they had a meeting, and at the meeting they decided that Stalin would be the enemy during the Cold War, you know, on the world stage. And I remember hearing that a long time ago, and I thought that was kind of far out, that maybe the guy was just kind of tripping. But more and more that as I get older, it's not crazy at all. It's actually, especially when you see like things that Putin's saying today. You know, they're definitely all in on this one world, United Nations whole trip, where they're,
no, it's really weird. I can't actually comment on my own video. Like it blocked my own comment, so pretty weird here. Okay, let's see here. Caleb.
I've been having a lot of technical difficulties lately myself, to be honest with you, and I don't know necessarily what's going on.
It's pretty weird. Like I think YouTube is like definitely like targeted me for extermination or something. It's pretty weird. So I guess I'll see everybody in the gulag. I'll see you guys there, because that's what it feels like. Right?
Well,
Like, yeah, I think it's just.
Well, if you read Huxley, you already know you're in it.
Well, I haven't read it. Now I know though.
He basically makes the I remember being younger and had this on. I think it was on my MySpace biography. It's like a Huxley quote where he's like, "You'll be enslaved to your toaster ovens" or something. I mean, that's not really what he said, but it's basically that, and it's not a lie.
Right. Well, I want to cover a little bit more of this thing because this is impromptu. I didn't plan this. Like, actually, I had a whole lot of other stuff planned, but I figure, well, I might as well. So, anyways, I'll put that down in the chat for anybody who wants it, including you, which I'll send that. I guess I'll send it to you separately as well. But let me just finish this little thing I had pulled up, because I don't know how much time I'm gonna have before I pass out. So let me see here. Let's see. The Jacobins, radical urban crowds. Let's see here. So you have Robespierre, of course. The guillotining, the King's Trial. So here's the thing. So here's what they championed, and it sounds so innocuous: republicanism, egalitarianism, and revolutionary change. Now, actually, what I'm going to play for you next, which isn't Caleb Maupin, although it should be. I want to see if you pick up on any themes that
I want to mention something about the Jacobins before you move forward.
Oh, I'm not moving forward yet. I'm still got like a lot to read. I'm just mentioning that as an aside. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is something for someone who's maybe new to this conversation. If I don't know if we have viewers or not, but anyway, I kind of want to talk about this for a second. The Jacobins came out of Jacques de Molay, right? That's true, right?
Well, I heard that name.
You know
that's the guy who got burned up as the
correct
Knights Templar or some shit, right?
Right. So what so I recently did my research into this figure and why he's so important to them. Okay, so the reason he's so important to them is that he was like the high priest or the highest Templar, whatever you would call like the highest ranking guy, you know? He was the highest ranking guy, a part of the Templars. Well, they had a close association with a group called the Assassins. And the Assassins were sort of like Sufi, Islam, assassins, right? I don't know. Anyway, but that's besides the point. The Templars started off as like these lay people, sort of, that dressed in regular clothes, and they were ordained by the church to sort of watch roads because there were, Muslims or people that were, overturning carriages and stealing and raping people and doing all this crazy stuff. They were told by the church to watch this, and they had a blessing to do so by the Catholic Church. So they started doing that. Well, it started off with about 5 members, and then slowly but surely they grew and grew. And then they started, they changed their clothes to having, the all white with a red cross, okay, stitched on their uniform. Well, one of the princes of that area, I forget where it was, Safed in Jerusalem, I think it was, gave them a mansion to sort of stay in, or a temple to stay in. That's what it was, and that's why they called the lodge the temple or something like that, right? Well, later on, Larianic Kabbalah would come out of that same region, but anyways, at a certain point, the Templars started losing battles. And even prior to this, they had kind of like started the first banking system where they could go into any town and get loans from the town, or being given gold from the town if they needed money. All right, this sort of setup they had going on. But anyways, they started losing battles. So the Templars started questioning that if they really had the true God, why would God allow them to lose these particular battles? And because early on they weren't getting defeated, and later on they started getting defeated. And the reason they were getting defeated, I believe, is because the Catholic Church had broken away from Orthodoxy, and they lost the humility that they once had. Now they're no longer humble, and they're prideful, and they weren't too kind to the Hospitallers and the other orders of the Christian orders of the time. So they start questioning their beliefs, and they start giving into like maybe some Sufi thoughts because they were close with the Assassins. And then they started looking into like the Gnostics, and then maybe some of the Jewish Gnostics, and slowly but surely they wanted to keep the outward appearance of still being within the Catholic Church because they could move freely. They didn't have to have to deal with the claims that they were heretics and all these other things. But they started developing a secret doctrine, and that secret doctrine is what they would teach each other. But outsiders, they were just regular old Catholics, right? Eventually, they are discovered. Well, when they're discovered, they're supposed to, Jacques de Molay is supposed to be burnt in front of the Notre Dame Cathedral. They end up sending them to a different island, and torturing for a very long time. They all confess to this. Of course, all the history books say that they were forced to confession, and that they really didn't believe these things and all this other stuff. Well, the reality was that was what they convinced everybody else. They really did believe those things, because the modern day Templars believe those things. And some people say there's no connection there. I don't buy it. I believe that they'd always have existed since that time. And they're, but that's the backstory, basically.
Sounds like they was Rosicrucians and shit.
That's exactly what they were. They had these weird beliefs, man, where they would spit on the cross, or they do like weird stuff, like where they would kiss one of the other members, behinds or ass, to show humility or
Well,
something.
I kind of think that's what well, this is kind of weird, but like I think what's that Monty Python and the Holy Grail? You ever seen that movie?
Hmm.
Like, you ever get a sense that that movie is definitely like, because it's like about King Arthur, but it's also about like the Grail, and it's also about like, it seems like just a stupid movie, but like I'm very
They're
convinced that
alluding
movie
to
is,
things in
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I haven't seen it in a long time,
yeah,
but I
but
guarantee you, there's like probably Templar myths or
well,
or
well the
realities.
Life of Brian is 100% like deep occultism. Like, I don't know exactly what it means, but like if you really watch it, they're like saying like Jesus was like the son of like a rape baby with a Jewish woman, and like he has a Roman nose, and like they go through all these like little
Yeah,
things.
that's Yeshu something. That's a Kabbalistic myth or a Talmudic myth, actually.
Right. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying that like it's very layered. Like even the jokes that people think are just like nonsense. Like a lot. I'm telling you, like it's really not. Like it's highly layered. And again, that's the thing about like Cobain or like uh I'm sure Bob Dylan's the same thing. And like I was listening to that song by his son, Bob Dylan's son today. And I know I'm rambling and like schizo, but
Jacob.
Jacob Dylan, yeah, the Wallflowers, remember? And they had that really big song. If you listen to that song is really weird.
One headline.
Yep, it's very strange lyrics and stuff. Like it's the first time as an adult I really listened to it, and I'm like really listening. I'm like, this is a weird song. I don't remember exactly all the lyrics, but I was really like
Well,
trying to.
supposedly, like I said, like I showed you that guy, the whole Dylanologist,
Right, exactly.
that guy, he claims that Bob Dylan's a part of the Hellfire Club, you know,
Well, that makes
which
a lot
was
of
like an
sense because that's like
early.
because Franklin was hugely involved with France. You know what I mean? Like he was like best friends with all these people, like hanging out over there and shit. So
Right, and like that Hellfire Club is what later would develop into America's Bohemian Grove. The same rituals, they use
it,
the
you
same
you know you
rituals.
know who's a part of Bohemian Grove? Kid Rock.
Right.
And he's like saying, "Oh, this guy tried to infiltrate, and I whooped this dude's ass in front of all these guys, and I was hanging out with." And it's like, "Oh yeah, American badass," but he's like hanging out at Bohemian Grove. Like, come on, man. Pretty weird, dude. It's like a really weird
Yeah, dude,
ritual,
you're
weird
hanging out with a
religion.
bunch of occultists that as far as, I don't know if you know the whole story, the Hunter S. Thompson, Franklin stuff, but that stuff is
I heard about. I
psycho.
looked into it a little bit, enough to know that it's important and it's, well,
Well,
yeah,
Jones had covered it early on, and he had had a senator on his show in like 2002, maybe 2004, something like that, right?
right. Well, and I think
And
yeah, and I think it's a lot. That's a very complicated thing because I think it ties directly into psyops and stuff. Like, I mean, obviously, but I mean, like in a layered way, in a way that's layered that people don't fully appreciate. I think that was a very sophisticated.
I see what you're saying, like because it like gave into like the whole QAnon movement,
Right. I
right?
think that was like the beginning of like what QAnon became essentially. So like he exposed aspects of it, right? And that was kind of like his initiation into it. That's my opinion. I can't say that for sure, but like
No, but I think because if you watch Cooper, Bill Cooper, who was naval intelligence, and he said he had Q clearance, they would give him stories that he wasn't sure were necessarily true or not. And why? It's like, because if you were to tell, release these stories to the public, they don't know if they're true or not. It's very Leo Taxel esque.
well, and it's also like even if they're true, then what? Like, okay, these are true, and now like what are you supposed to do with it? It's like it's like unless you're betting on stocks or something, like really, what does that tell you? It doesn't really like, you know what I mean? Like you're not gonna
I
go and
I would
like
say this. I would say this is that it matters in the sense that it's as psychotic as you would think it would be, right? I guess it's as satanic and psychotic as you would think. If it's not, then it's just as psychotic because they're releasing information because they want you to think they're like that bad, right?
Exactly. Well, and you
I
see
don't
what they've
know.
done
It's
to people around the world, so like it's definitely not outside the and I mean I don't want to get off on a whole side tangent, but I mean it's like look at how people are suffering all over the world, and especially here in the United States. Like that's what really makes me angry is like if we're really this badass group of white savages from the caves and shit that took over the whole world, like how come our people are all on fentanyl and like dying on the side of the road? I mean like
well,
we're
for
we're not
one,
succeeding very well, are
if you
we?
look into that, um, but if the whole war on drugs, uh, and everybody knows this that at least I know is like uh, Skull and Bones and Bill Clinton and Bush and all this other stuff. They were deeply involved with flooding the streets with narcotics, but that again is like why, and it's like this is a way to move into a control grid, right? Like a system where it's like justification where they can sort of just go into your shit, right? I don't
The
know
biggest
anywhere else to put it.
well, the biggest problem of them going into your shit is not what they'll find, it's what they can put in there. You know what I mean? I think that's what people don't understand is like they can falsify anything now.
Right, exactly. So they could just like throw something behind, like, oh, look what I found, like, and they're known to do stuff like that, right?
Well, and
And
that's probably what they
now
did.
it's like,
That's probably what they did to people like Bill Cooper or Alex Jones. You know what I mean?
well, Bill Cooper got killed,
Exactly.
and what he says about Jones is a patsy, and he fully denounces him as just kind of like
Well, there's nothing
he
more
gets
that they
fed stories.
there's nothing they love more than a useful idiot. Like that's their favorite thing. I think it's like
Right.
it's like their delicacy essentially. It's like you get a useful idiot who doesn't know fully what it. And Alex Jones is definitely not an idiot. I'm just saying like you know probably at some point he truly did believe more or less what he's doing, and then the deeper and deeper he got into it, he probably went crazy, and then they sent in some Scientologists to like reprogram his mind and get him back on track.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the details of all that is. What what's going on with him, but I do know this is that even Bill Cooper, for instance, is he's not some like prophet or something because he tries to like sell that off in his book, like or like when he's introduced to people, they introduce him as like some form of like Christian prophet. It's like, no, he's not. He barely believes
Right.
the
No, I
Christian
know.
story.
I've
And
noticed.
why?
Well, that's one of the reasons I never looked into Bill Cooper. Is not because I think he was probably wrong, but it's the way that the people that act about they always treat Bill Cooper like he should be rolled out on a red carpet, and his corpse should be like paraded around or
No,
something.
I mean, I'll tell you this because he's naval intelligence. He's a different level than someone like Alex Jones, because he does have the credentials to back up what he's saying, and that's helpful. It's the same reason I'd go to a KGB guy, And some people will be like, "What do you mean you go to a KGB guy?" And it's like, "Well, I would go to some KGB, not all of
Well,
them."
well, a lot of
You
what they
know,
say is true though. That's the thing is like I think a lot of people just say, well, like, oh, they're just liars. It's like a good liar is going to tell you 99% truth. You know what I mean? Like they're not gonna just lie every other word. You know what I mean?
right?
That's
And
not
that's like
something a good
Oleg
liar would do.
Plantinov. If you know anything about that guy, he'll sort of his famous lie is sort of like once Stalin took over, he was horrible. That's true, but he got rid of the Bolsheviks for us, which is sort of like, come on, dude. You know what I mean? Like, Do you really believe that? Or are you saying that
what he's
because
really saying is he got rid of Trotsky to preserve some level of semblance of like normalcy, but it was too little, too late. That's what he's really saying. I think that's what he's actually saying. It's like, so yeah, they got rid of Trotsky, but it's like, okay, but what else did they do, right? So it's like,
well, the only reason they did is because I think they seen the if they were to move into what would be known as a one world order, everybody has to have some basis of like you know you couldn't have one country that's like Trotsky and the other one is whatever the United States thinks it is. You know what I mean, like a democracy or something. You'd have to have like a global system that's similar in a sense, right? So I think that was the whole point in doing that. It's like that was only a placer for what's to come, which is like a global Masonic system, a humanist utopia. So that's what I see, at least.
I want to get through some more of this, like just basic stuff, really quick, and then I want
Yeah,
to
yeah,
I
yeah.
want to show you a couple things, because I will pass out in probably the next hour, hour and a half. So let me show you, but I do have like some good stuff for you. So like I'm not just wasting your time here. But I just want to get through some of these. So like yeah, they basically suspended the monarchy. They declared a republic. They executed the king. They exploded. They did a classic communist move where they kicked out all the people that actually helped them get started. So they did a purge against their own people, of course. Then they did the Reign of Terror, where they said Committee of Public Safety, and then they implemented mass executions. And so in like 1 year, they just executed 40,000 people, in the middle of the street, basically. And by the way, a lot of those people were just people that other people didn't like, so they would just make shit up, of course, and
Yeah, and for the record, it's like they got the bureaucrats or like the bourgeois to sort of overthrow the monarchy. The people that were sort of angry at the monarchy that were on the same level as them, like rich people, and then they took it from them, right?
Right.
So and the people that took it from them would be what would be known as the Illuminati, or and which even saying that word has become a buzz term, but it is what it is.
But it was a real thing, and there's a few different versions of it. And then it's also this. It's like the period. So it's like they enforce de-Christianization and and they try to control the market. So like basically they're like, oh, we really want freedom, and then the first thing they do is like, you can't have any religion. We got to control the economy like communist, and we have to suppress anybody else. So we just did we just did a revolution, but if anybody wants to do a revolution against us, we'll execute you. It's like, okay, so
That's the point of shutting down all the Masonic lodges from that point on. Right. And that's what the Russian Revolution did. That's what Mr. Mustache did. And it's also cover. So historians can't figure it out.
Right. Well, then they say, oh, well, it couldn't have been the Masons because they got shut down. Right. So it's like.
Right.
It's not like they would just go underground and start passing messages or whatever. So
or why would they need to be underground or a secrecy if there's the externalization of the hierarchy now?
Well, that's a good point. Well, I think that might be something too hard to get into, but I mean that's why they don't really hide. Well, that's why they don't really hide it. When you watch, that's why I always say like they're not really hiding anything. You just watch the news. It's like they're mostly telling you the truth. So it's not really like that much that they're really lying about,
Right.
So promotion of republicanism and equality, and of course they had this term called the general will, which is total nonsense. Economic and social measures. So basically, it's just like weaponization of language. But it's like, okay, so like they nationalized churches, abolished feudalism and slavery, implemented controlled economy during crises, which the crisis never ended, of course. And
no. I guess did they promise the landowners that they would get like all this stuff or something? they make
that's
a
the
bunch
thing
of
is like,
promises.
so they actually say that they were for the people, but they actually like help the bourgeoisie over everybody else. So it's like,
Exactly. Yeah.
and then they had like, so then they had all this network of local clubs. So they expanded the amount of clubs, which is basically like a secret police essentially. Um, so they raised armies, organized festivals, monitored opinions, and replaced officials.
Hmm.
Yep. So
What's that sound like? You know,
sounds like the
it's like,
Red Guard or something.
well, this is exactly what we're dealing with today. Um, the reality what is that, I believe that America at one time did at least have um leaders that really did believe in our Constitution and our what the founding fathers taught. And I don't think that they were necessarily like these evil Jacobin types, or like the Illuminati or something like that. Like that, I don't think they really were that way. I think that they were like, the classic Blue Lodge, but the classic Blue Lodge had been radicalized with, Weishaupt's ideology, which was radical. You know what I mean? He wanted to overthrow everything. Which I think that the initial purpose of the lodge wasn't that for a lot of guys. I think it wasn't sincerely just this what they try to play it off as today, like, oh, it's just like a place where we can meet up and talk about different subjects, right? It's like I think there were places like that, but
Yeah,
when you have
it was called the
guys like a
church.
Weishaupt,
It was called the church for 2,000 years, but
yeah, exactly. There was, I don't know. I've looked into some history. Supposedly, the very first, like, what would become Masonic lodges, started around the time of Christianity and early Christianity, because they seen how Christianity was effective, and they seen how Christianity sort of conquered Rome, so to speak.
right, and they're like, we need to get in on this and like get these people's good wills and intentions and true religion and turn it against them essentially.
Exactly, and that's where you have like the early form of like Gnostics, and what the Bible actually mentions, which Christ says he hates. He's talking about the Nicolaitans. And what the Nicolaitans did was start subverting teachings of the church into Gnostic doctrines. It's like they would say something like this: "It's like we can't fast and follow the uphold the teachings of the church, so we'll just like um, do evil acts until the point where we don't feel like doing them anymore or something." You know what I mean? Like, it's like just flip all the teachings on their heads and then teach other people to do that, which is exactly what Freemasonry kind of is. It's like taking a Christian base and like pushing it in a weird direction.
Twisting everything. So
Yeah.
this banking wizard, his name was Jacques Necker from Geneva. He was a Protestant. He basically speculated on stuff, including financing France from Switzerland or whatever. And then he came to France and became like the lead. So he was a foreigner who became the leader of France for the king or whatever, right? And so he also gave a bunch of loans to America to fund their war, shockingly enough. And anyways, long story short, he got in trouble because he was like trying to like lie about how good France was doing, but then he got recalled because everything was falling apart. And then a third estate, so he wanted to double the third estate into the Estates General, and then so then he was dismissed, and then that's caused riots. So basically, like, because he got dismissed, that's why they had the storming of the Bastille. So like, this dude was an agent through and through. Do you see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
this dude was like basically like sent in as a foreign guy to like come and like destroy France
an
and
agent provocateur, and then the people fought for the hero they were given.
correct. Yes, exactly. And so like then it says Jewish involvement in the French Revolution. Um, there was a Jewish community in France, about 40,000, about the time of the revolution, mostly Ashkenazi and Alsace and Sephardi in the southwest. They were primarily beneficiaries rather than instigators of the revolutionary changes. So they didn't instigate
Yeah.
anything, but they did benefit. So, I mean, I'm sure that's, a coincidence.
Oh,
Um,
come on, man.
well, no,
That's why
that's
the Bar Kokhba revolution that I was telling you. Remember this whole thing where like they thought the Messiah was this guy that was gonna overthrow the Roman Empire, right?
right. So check this
Um,
out. At the end of it, they got full citizenship and emancipation, making France the first European country to do so. So literally, Jews were not allowed to be citizens before this. Again, I'm not making any comment on it. I'm just saying that is very interesting. I did not know that. So, um, then Abi Grigori, so they said he advocated for Jewish regeneration through assimilation. So Jews participated economically by purchasing nationalized church properties and lending money to peasants. Oh, that's very sweet.
yeah, yeah, and that's how they got into positions of
Right, and then
to
it's
this day of leadership.
aiding rural land acquisition. That doesn't sound like something that's happening today in America at all. I mean, I'm sure that's definitely not happening here. Um, Anti-Jewish riots occurred, and some revolutionary factions expressed anti-something or another. Um, and viewing these people as economic exploiters, those evil people. Notable J-ish
So there
people.
was like a subset that had been rallied against this, right?
Right.
I wonder
Now,
who rallied them up.
right. So it's like historians like David Sorkin argued Jews were not central to the revolution's causation, but they did benefit from the egalitarian
Oh,
ideas.
come on, man. This is what I don't get about these historians. It's like, who's paying you to say that they weren't involved? You know, where were the, Masonic lodges? Like, you think, it, oh man, that's so crazy.
And then it says, um, Napoleon later reinforced emancipation through the 1806 and 1808 Sanhedrin and consistories, standardizing Jewish civic integration. And then it says Freemasonic organizations' involvement in the French Revolution. Oh, the Grand Orient de France was influential in intellectual and social circles pre-revolution.
Right, but the whole slogan of the French Revolution is fraternity. What is it? It's like freedom, fraternity, and brotherhood, right, or something. I forget what it is. It's something like that, but that's the slogan of the Grand Orient.
What is
It's
it?
like,
What is it? What's their
all
slogan?
right, let me look it up. Hold on.
Yeah, and,
Okay.
and then it says that they use symbolism, and a lot of the key figures were said to possibly be to definitely be Masons, but Robespierre they weren't sure. So like all his friends were not sure if Robespierre was.
Oh, come on. He was, they had a nickname for Napoleon, like as being like a, hold on, slogan of French Revolution. Okay, liberté, égalité, fraternité. That means, uh, what is it? What is it in English? Come on. What is it? Liberty, equality, fraternity. Okay, so that's the Grand Orient's slogan too, as well, for the record.
Say that again.
Liberty, equality, fraternity. That's what it is, man.
Sounds like Satanism.
Yeah, exactly. It is.
So let me show you
Man.
this. Let me show you this really quick. So I'm going to show you this really. I'm going to play this for 3 minutes, and then I'm going to show you. Then we're going to get into the real shit. Hold on. Can you see? Let me know.
And if you don't like Tucker Carlson, well, sorry. I don't really like him either. Tucker Carlson's laugh is so corny and fake, and his hair like flounces around every time that he laughs. And
open your open the stream on the oh, what's up, Joe?
I did. Hold on, let me back out and like come back in and see if it works.
Alright, cool. What's up, Joe? What you doing there, boy? You out there trying to find out what you're gonna do over there in the pumpkin patch? Oh, I know why it's not playing. My bad. I fucked up. It's my bad.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it works now.
No, it's my bad. Yeah, hold on. I had the wrong thing up. Hold up. It's my fault. All right.
And if you don't like Tucker Carlson, well, sorry. I don't really like him either. Tucker Carlson's laugh is so corny and fake, and his hair like flounces around every time that he laughs. And he reminds me of what you would think of like your conservative neighbor that lives down the street in a log cabin who wants to go fishing on a Saturday and talk about his time with the CIA in Nicaragua. Like, that's who Tucker Carlson is. I'm not really into it.
But, you know, we'd have Christians and pastors. We'd have cultists. One of my experts on the show was this guy, Mitch Horowitz, who I think you knew. I forget if it was at Salon or...
oh, yeah, this is about his past.
Yeah, very nice guy. Well,
guy being a Satanist.
He became an expert on the occult.
Hold on. Mitch Horowitz was Tucker Carlson's editor.
I'm Mitch, and I'm a heretic because I believe the occult is a viable, practical, workable way of life.
Process Mitch Horowitz. Temple of Psychic Youth Mitch Horowitz. Worked for Tucker Carlson. Are you fucking kidding me?
Tucker Carlson
I'm, like, trying to
says,
figure out what is the timeline of this
he says,
fellow over here. With
he
his
was a Satanist
Ghostbusters
before I knew after I knew him. That's what he said after that. I watched that episode. It's crazy, dude.
Yeah, I didn't see that, but she's saying this guy was a part of the Process Church, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now, is it proven that he was only a part of the Process Church after he was the editor of Tucker Carlson?
I've never heard of this guy before, but I'm going to look into it because let me back it up because she
try to find out, because that's the claim that Tucker makes when it gets brought up.
Yeah,
and if you look at Tucker's body language, his arms are crossed.
Yeah, he looks down
and he looks pissed.
Yeah. So do me a favor, text me your notes on that because I'll look into it. I'll dig into it. Hold on, let me send this to you. Hold on. I just want to back up and hear what you said.
Mitch Horowitz was Tucker Carlson's editor.
I'm Mitch, and I'm a heretic because I believe the occult is a viable, practical, workable way of life.
Process Mitch Horowitz. Temple of Psychic Youth Mitch Horowitz.
Temple of Psychic something or another. I didn't catch that quite, but I'll look into him. Mitch, I've never heard of this dude before, so this is the first time I've ever heard of him. So
worked for Tucker Carlson. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh God. I'm like trying to figure out what is the timeline of this fellow over here with his Ghostbusters and off salmon button up here and very strange Lego shaped head. Sorry. Like, what is the time frame he's talking about? Because yeah, like weird scenes, Dave McGowan, even William Ramsey. There are other people that have done this work. Mitch Horowitz worked for Tucker Carlson. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure that I heard that correctly.
I talked to him, a very nice guy. I think he's a self-described Satanist. You know,
that was after I knew him.
That was after, we got to clarify that, you know. Yeah. But
arms crossed means defensive.
Why is
for the
Tucker
record.
Carlson so insistent that Mitch Horowitz was not a Satanist when he was working for him? Do you think that's bad PR for the right wing Party?
The show, it's all a long way to say, well, creating the show and taking it around town. I'm another guy that was a big influence, Gary Lockman, this occult historian, a friend of mine. While doing the show and trying to get it created,
he's friends with bitch ass Gary Lockman. Are you kidding me? We're just getting the gang back together, aren't we? Are you kidding me? You literally cannot make this up. We're getting the band back together, the Process Sibs back together, the Temple of Psychic Youth back together. This is fucking preposterous. This is ridiculous, and I'm so glad. Thank you, Echo Cat. Thank you, Soil Lodge, for mentioning this to me, and that you guys sat here and watched this. Thank you.
Why are they into the same stuff that Kenneth Grant, Genesis P. Orridge was into, Brian Geis and William S. Burroughs? Why are they into the same weird?
But well, I don't know exactly what he's talking about, but I'm pretty sure he's talking about OTO. If I'm remembering correctly, Kenneth Grant was like high level OTO, if I remember right. Because I just
No.
like 2 days ago. Hold on one second.
He says William S. Burroughs. Why are they into the same type of thing? And if you look into William S. Burroughs,
was very, very, very closely related to.
He's the godfather of punk rock, they say.
Yep, like literally, I think he was part of the people who set up Cobain because, I'll tell you this, it's now come out that basically, so Cobain used to cross dress with Mark Lanigan and Dylan Carlson and some of these other people, and those are his two best friends, which were probably hardcore cultists. Are probably allegedly the ones who killed him. I'm not gonna say that I know that for sure, but it makes a lot more sense when you think about like Cobain was probably highly initiated, and I think the fact that Burroughs met with him not long before he died was a part of that, and that's basically what Courtney Love's father basically said that before he died too, actually. So I just think that's very interesting. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, but yeah.
And he was a part of Thelema, this Kenneth Grant guy they're talking about. So he was basically OTO. So.
Well, I know that Burroughs was instrumental in propagating the idea of synchronicity to the United States, and that was in his novel Naked Lunch, if I'm not mistaken. And it's high level, he talks about possession in the book. He talks about being possessed by alien forces that are outside of yourself, and just extremely satanic stuff, right? And his form of writing was like that too. It's being possessed and using the cut up method to cut into the future and all this other stuff, very strange stuff. And if I'm not mistaken, that's Cobain used that type of style when writing his lyrics.
I'm pretty sure he did, because if you read his journals, most of the stuff that he wrote, he just mixed together, because it was most of his songs were not all written. Some of them were written out in that notebook of his, but most of those songs he at the last minute swap things in and out right before he went into actually go and record. So
yeah,
and I think he did that as a part of his practice, right? So I think he just did that I think other than when he was doing the big recordings, you know what I mean? But basically, I think when he was formulating the songs, he would force himself to remix a lot of the lyrics and stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure that's what he did.
Yeah, last minute type stuff to try to get the kind of Kerouac effect, the first thought being the best thought, almost a reverse of that, or something, last thought being the best thought or something. I don't know. It's weird stuff, dude. But there is an occult practice within that type of writing style. Burroughs talks about it pretty deeply, He's talking about being possessed, and the only way he could become unpossessed was writing himself out of it.
Weird stuff. So that was, to answer your question, that was the entry point to this for me, is having researched the show.
Does he also mean weird stuff as in touching kids? Like William S. Burroughs and Genesis P. Orridge? Because that's what they were into. This guy should hook up with Manny. I don't really know about that. What a nightmare. Is this like a backhand? I'm trying to process this information, pun intended or not. I'm trying to understand if this is what some people call like disclosure. Is this supposed to be like a low-key disclosure of like process influence in Silicon Valley?
We don't see them as a cult.
No.
Can I just say that for all my people, especially those that have been with me for some time, we get to tell the entire world, we told you so. We tried to warn you. Because this is literally just straight up like process fucking disclosure. This is really wild to me listening to this. So when your friends tell you that the process is a conspiracy theory and blah, 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 you get to sit there and say, no, you were right. And we've been talking about it for 2 years. Just past our 2-year anniversary. Suck my dick.
Yeah, she's not wrong. All those Silicon Valley dudes are kind of deeply embedded into whatever that same counterculture movement that Burroughs kind of started.
100%, 100%, and like honestly, like I didn't realize this, and like I'm actually kind of holding back some of this, but I started doing a little research on OTO, and I looked on Twitter, and like apparently a lot of people have like shown that like all these people in like Silicon Valley are like doing the OTO like hand signs, including like Elon Musk and all this. So like they're like literally shouting out OTO and like I pretty and shit like this. So like I mean, is that 100% for sure? No, but like I think it's a pretty high possibility.
Well, all the celebrities are in on it. And if you look at Elon Musk, being closely aligned with like a person like Grimes, okay?
And Amber Heard.
Grimes is clearly like the process church, OTO, like influenced. But anybody that kind of like grew up on the culture of like kind of rock and roll, punk rock, any of that,
I did.
Um,
But I was late.
that's
I was a
where
late
that
comer. I got
the
into it
aesthetic
late.
came from,
I
dude.
got into it at like 16, so I didn't really like. I wasn't really like. I didn't really like grow up with it, but I got into it like 15, 16, and like really deep dived into it. Like Dead Kennedy.
Well, all the musical artists, and we're talking every single one that was in the mainstream, and even like, kind of like obscure artists were involved, like, and they had direct connections with oligarchs who wanted them to push revolutionary mindsets, What the OTO is basically like a low level Masonic lodge, right? And on the grand scale of things, which it's not low level really, but it's like a subset of Masonry, right? It's like not an official lodge.
Well, it's
That's
kind of like,
why they
like
can practice Satanism.
It's almost like a syncretic version of it, where it's like taking Catholicism and merging it with like other things, I guess you'd say. So it's almost like we're Catholics, but we're like dark Catholics or something. It's like we're goth Catholics or something. It's very weird. I mean, I haven't looked that
Yeah.
deep into it yet.
Well, it's satanic. It's John D. Enochian magic. The Kabbalah, but you're saying it's not coming from the Jays, it's coming from the Egyptians. Hermeticism, Hermes Trismegistus, like all this kind of like the Western Hermetic tradition, Blavatsky, all that is culminated into one sort of like subset of Masonry that has a hierarchy. Just like any other, Rosicrucian degrees or something like that. It's the same thing, but it's almost like it was like set up specifically for like a Masonic youth movement, right? Or a Masonic, I don't know how to put it, like a Masonic celebrity lodge. Does that make sense?
Scientology.
Pretty much.
I want to play this for you because I know you haven't seen it. I was watching it with Machine, and like I couldn't take it because like I had so many things I want to interject. So I'm gonna play this. And I just want to get your live reaction to it. I'm going to turn down the volume so you can talk over it, but like I really want to get your take on what's being said here because I'm going to play the first like 10 minutes of this probably. Let me just start it for you.
Christian nationalism, this is so stupid. Better than liberal status quo, like both a part of the same dialectic, of course.
If you need to stop it, just let me know. But otherwise, I'm just going to let it play through until it gets to the second. Whatever. So just let me know if you need to stop
And
it.
good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Sarah, the Raging Tomato, here bringing to you live another debate. This afternoon, I have with me Andrew Wilson from The Crucible and John Fugelsang. Both of them are here to debate the topic, Christian nationalism is better for society than the liberal status quo. If you enjoy debates, please make sure to make your way over to Modern Day Debate for our DebateCon coming November 15th, 14th and 15th, I believe, down in Nashville. Type in Raging Tomato to get your discount code there. Andrew, would you like to begin with your opening statement, please? You're muted. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks for having me on for the debate today. Appreciate it, and John for showing up. Let me start with two quotes from John's book, Separation of Church and Hate. Quote, Paul is a Jesus conservative PR guy who corrupted the Bible and says, but after Rome co-opted Christianity, things didn't really proceed according to Jesus' plan. You can find this on page 51. Second quote, Saul would later become Paul, missionary to the Gentiles, one of the most significant figures in early Christianity and one of the most contradictory. If Jesus was the game-changing rock star, Paul was his hardworking, deeply uptight, conservative PR guy. Most of the sexual hang-ups of the New Testament come from Paul, who believed the world would end in his lifetime and generally felt that everyone should be celibate like him. Everything that passes for homophobia, misogyny in the New Testament comes from Paul, not Jesus. For better or worse, he is the person most responsible for organized Christianity as we know it, and that's from page 43. Here's why those quotes are important. For those unaware, John has created, with his own body of work, an epistemic pincer, a logic trap of his own making, and he couldn't even see he was doing it when he wrote it. If Paul corrupted Christ's message, as John claims in his book, and the church also corrupted it in 380 AD, as John claims, then how can John trust that words attributed to Christ in the Bible are even accurate? He can't. Additionally, St. Paul didn't just write the epistles, separate from the other apostles. They were aware of him and his teachings and approved of it. St. Luke wrote the book of Acts, for example. If they couldn't distinguish between what Jesus wanted and how what Paul was doing when against Jesus, they were either completely useless and ignorant, or they were in on it. Either conclusion, destroying their writings, including the quotes of Jesus. If he thinks the Bible isn't accurate and is corrupted, then he can't claim to know what Christ even taught or believed. If he does believe the Bible is the preserved word of Christ, then he has to believe that St. Paul was a proper and right representative of Christ's teachings and cannot disparage him as a, quote, homophobe. He also would need to believe that the church body that preserved and compiled the Bible held on to the intent of the Bible, and that church body all are homophobic, conservative, non-Christians, according to John's own claims. Either way, you need to reject the Bible and Christianity, at least his made-up version of it. Because John likely may not even understand what I just said from a logical point of view, what the audience will see today is what's called cognitive dissonance. The reason John has this is due to his Trump derangement syndrome. John doesn't care about the Bible or Christianity. He cares about the progressive left winning elections and carrying out talking points against Christians. It's about power, and John doesn't want you to have any. What's objectively hilarious here is that this debate isn't even about the Bible at all, or even John's failed epistemology and Christology. This debate is about Christian nationalism being better for society than the progressive status quo. To contrast this, the Christ Nationalist Society is a proposition which states that Christian ethics should remain the dominant force in the United States. The emphasis here should be on a strong central family unit.
Andrew is presenting a false dialectic to the audience by claiming that Orthodox Christianity can be a viable form of Christian nationalism, which that's not the purpose of the church, and there has been. There's the form of nationalism that they want to obfuscate is love of one's family and one's country, but they subvert that to be some form of Trumpian, right-wing, modernist, American, egalitarian, Masonic version of a true nationalist movement, which you could technically have one, but you would have to follow something like Isaac Ilian or something like that to understand exactly what that would look like in an Orthodox context. They don't have an Orthodox context. And if they were to have what they claim, the hierarchy of the church would be all Masons and Freemasonic, anyways, because it's been infiltrated. So his whole entire outlook is just as cognitively biased.
To be outlawed with some small caveats for the mother's life being placed in immediate danger of pregnancy. It proposes that mass migration be stopped and replaced with manageable immigration policies for the purpose of managed integration without putting the cultural burden on an already burdened domestic population. It proposes that Christians in governing positions are generally better than non-Christians and have every right to govern using Christian ethics as their guide and always have. It proposes the elimination of gay marriage, trans ideology, pornography, sex work, and an educational revamp to stop the glorification of such activities in public school systems. It proposes the potential elimination of no-fault divorce or a cooling period before marriage is allowed, and further that marriage itself is a domain of the religious and not secularists or the state. It proposes that children belong to parents and not the state. It proposes that Marxism is a threat to humanity due to its secular militant ideology and needs to be removed from the national discourse. There are many things which Christian nationalism as a worldview proposes as political changes to keep Christian ethics as its front-end worldview. It proposes an end to feminism to be replaced by strong patriarchal systems, for instance. John's worldview, on the other hand, is more of the same. Mass migration, pro-choice, and particularly he believes the Bible's pro-choice against the fundamental teachings of the church fathers before Rome supposedly corrupted it in 380, and I have all their quotes. Gay marriage and the celebration of homosexuality as an identity, part of the status quo of John. The promotion of trans ideology, part of the status quo of John. The promotion of feminism and female clergy, status quo John. The promotion of sexual liberation, status quo John. And essentially all other progressive views. He's a status quo progressive, nothing more. John basically wants to use the Bible to promote progressive values, but in order to do this, he has to take out the pesky parts, which he doesn't like, which is why he sees Paul as a corrupter. Hilariously enough, he admitted to me he thinks Jesus is God, which, if true, means that Jesus nuked Sodom and Gomorrah, flooded the earth, endorsed slavery, and all of the other great sins in his book that he attributes to God. Yet another contradiction, considering he says Jesus was, quote, a groovy dude. John is a progressive operative, and though perhaps no longer paid by any DNC group, but he is an ideological operative nonetheless. It's also ironic. John says he's tired of people trying to pervert his parents' religion when his parents' religion didn't hold that Paul was the conservative PR manager in a failed Christ messaging contest. Now, I have given the parallels between the ideologies and the advocations. Note here, this isn't about a debate of the Bible itself. This is a debate about the effects of having a Christian nationalist society as opposed to having a progressive society, which John wants. As we go through the effects of both of these societies, just note the effects of mine. Practicing Christians are less likely to divorce, report greater happiness levels. In fact, the more rigorous they are, the happier they are. Virgins, for instance, report, especially Christian ones, the most long-lasting term of marriage satisfaction rates and the highest happiness levels compared to the rest of the population, putting a lie to sexual liberation. Children in married homes with a mother and a father have the best long-term outcomes in their lives, and if they're practicing religious rigorism, have even more success in life and are less likely to be prone to drug abuse and criminality. Religious individuals, 24% less likely to be involved in criminal activities. Religious participation is associated with 20% reduction in recidivism, even among offenders. Higher religion correlates with lower attempts at violent crime with a decline 15% or more. Religious teens, 30% less likely to engage in delinquent behaviors. These are just some of the benefits of my worldview being pushed on society. But I can give you the stats for all of them, everything I just listed. Note, no data is perfect, and these stats may vary a bit poll to poll, depending on the study. But what isn't questioned to any significant degree is if religion itself and the Christian religion operates as a deterrent to criminality and makes for a better society, because the answer is most certainly yes, it does. I can justify each of these proposals I made during both Christian ethics, and I can use secular data talking points to prove both sides of it, and I'm happy to do so. John, on the other hand, can't. And the reason why is simple. The society he proposes, which is secular in nature, has no foundation for ethics at all. None. Zero. It's totally arbitrary, and that's what will be exposed here today in this debate.
Thank you, Andrew. And John, to you, please.
Thank you so much. Well, thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. Thanks for all your lovely comments. So I was invited here to talk about Christian nationalism. I hope it's okay that I didn't prepare any insults or slights or taunts at Andrew. I wish Andrew nothing but love and good health and a wonderful life and joy. And so I hope it's okay that I didn't prepare any, middle fingers for you. Thanks for having me. Listen, I just go by the Bible and the words we have. That's the Bible we have. And so I base what we have based on what we have there. Jesus treated women as equals. He was not misogynist like Paul. Homophobia is the opposite of the Sermon on the Mount, and it is not possible to follow the teachings and the Beatitudes and the sermon and think you're better than gay people. Now, Christian nationalism doesn't work. It could work as a society. I'm not here to say it doesn't. I just say it doesn't work with our Constitution or with the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It's not compatible. You can't do it. The movement is about power. And across history, we've seen every time Christianity tries to fuse itself with nationalism, it always betrays Christ. It always self-destructs, and it's always about one group of people who think God likes them better and they are elevated above everyone else. So I go by Jesus, who fulfilled the old covenant and brought the new one, right? His message is love, not fear. Jesus brings a new covenant, and that is why Gentiles get to have bacon. That is why you don't have to keep kosher. That is why you can drop the homophobia, and it's why nobody actually follows the book of Leviticus unless they're trying to weaponize a Bible chapter they themselves don't believe in or follow to hurt a gay minority that Christ commands us to love. Jesus was a peaceful, radical, nonviolent revolutionary. He spent his time in the poor communities around lepers, hookers, and crooks. He wasn't English. He never spoke American. He wasn't American and never spoke English. He was anti-wealth quite thoroughly, anti-public prayer, Matthew 6:5, very anti-prayer, told us not to trust the folks who pray in public to be seen, never anti-gay, never mentioned abortion, which is never specifically prohibited anywhere in the Bible. In fact, the Bible never at any point says to punish poor women with greater poverty, never says men can force women to be pregnant against their will, that governments of men have the right to force teenage girls to be pregnant by a rapist against her will. Quite the opposite. The Bible does not have any prohibitions for terminating a pregnancy. That is because the religion of Judaism does not ban abortion. Abortions are legal and free in Israel right now. Jesus was against the death penalty, never mentioned abortion, just like God and Moses and Paul and all the prophets. Judaism doesn't ban it. So he was never anti-gay, never anti-abortion, and he never said torture's okay sometimes. He never said you're better than anybody else because you believe in me. He never fought for tax cuts for the wealthiest Nazarenes. He never asked a leper for a copay, and he was a long-haired, brown-skinned, that's in Revelation, homeless, open borders, Middle Eastern, Palestinian, unarmed, anti-slut-shaming Jew. But that's only if you believe what is actually in the Bible. And again, he fulfilled the old covenant. So Jesus brings a new covenant. He reduces the 10 commandments to 2. He challenged or overturned many Old Testament rules, including the death penalty, which Jesus overturns in Sermon on the Mount with Turn the Other Cheek, and ends the concept of retributive justice and says now the focus is on love, because Christ is about transformation, not domination, going beyond what your religion teaches to a deeper kind of love, not some passive, permissive state, not just mere affection, a real action verb love, with all of the discipline and challenges and healing that can come with that. And again, every time Christianity fuses itself with empire, it leads to the opposite of Christ's commandments, because Christian nationalism is not a form of Christianity. It's a political ideology that uses Christian language to sanctify power, and it generally contradicts Jesus's teachings at every major point. Jesus lifted the lowly and prioritized the least of us. Matthew 6:5, my friends. Matthew 6:5, he gives his marching orders for individuals and of nations. Are we okay on time?
No, I just want, you were cutting out for a second.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. So that's where Jesus says he will, at the end of time, judge individuals and nations, gather them all, and judge them on certain criteria. You all know his criteria. It's Jesus's most famous speech. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was naked and you clothed me. Jesus's 4 criteria for what will get individuals or nations into heaven or hell are: you care for the poor, you care for the sick, you welcome the stranger, you're kind to people in prison. Nothing about how much you hate gay people, how cruel you are to trans people, how much you persecute the Christian refugees at our border that we've been brainwashed to call illegals because we need to have a dehumanizing slur, because if we see them as human and our fellow Christians, these inhumane policies would trouble our consciences. So again, Christian nationalism protects the powerful. It's about control. And Jesus was all about humility, modeling servant leadership. The last shall be first. Satan offers Jesus all that he can see, offers him all the world, all the power. Jesus, time and again, refuses the power. That's not his movement. It's about love and service. And again, Jesus is offered, he's offered multiple times to be a king, and he withdraws into the wilderness. He's not about power. He welcomes the stranger. God of the Old Testament commands the Israelites to welcome the stranger and treat the alien as one of our own. Jesus says individuals and nations will be judged by how we welcome the stranger. It's like his instruction to the Heritage Foundation. And Jesus says the ones that are going to hell are the individuals and nations who talk a good game about following him, but don't care for the poor, don't care for the sick, don't welcome the stranger, don't care for those in prison. So he preached love. He opposed domination. Christian nationalism excludes outsiders. It preaches fear. And I also don't accept that the current status quo is liberal. Republicans control all branches of government. Labor unions, once the backbone of liberal democracy, which built the middle class, are broken. Our healthcare system is abominable. It's an insult to Christ. Americans deserve the same access to healthcare as all of our capitalist allies overseas, but our healthcare system is a death sentence for poor people. Civil liberties that are being curtailed in the name of freedom. I mean, there's a myth of a liberal establishment because it serves power, and I get that. Try to find someone who's anti-death penalty who'll be elected president. Again, Christ was everything that is derided as woke, and he commands us to pick up a cross and follow him. It's not about being on top, and it's not about you winning all the time. Jesus's ministry is not about what you get. It's about what you do and what you give and how much deeper you love than you thought you could love before. Faith to Christ has nothing to do with being nice to trans people, supporting gender. I don't care. It's got nothing in violation of the teachings of Christ. He's very specific about how we should treat the least of us, and cruelty is not a Christian value. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. And as a kind reminder to the audience, we will get through our debate, then we will do closing statements, read and respond to your kind super chats. And unfortunately, we will not be doing open panel this afternoon, so we will shut down after that. Gentlemen, I leave the floor open to you.
Yeah, John, let's talk a little bit about Paul, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And the logical epistemic pincer here. Are you saying that Paul was wrong, and that the apostles were mistaken?
Wrong about what?
With Paul, they were wrong about the teachings of Jesus Christ.
In what way?
When he was laying them down as the foundation for the church in Acts.
I think in some areas he wasn't Christ-like. Christ treated women as equals. He's the greatest feminist in the Bible. Christ broke the laws.
Paul can't be trusted.
Christ broke the laws of his own faith to teach women and allow them to touch him. Paul's misogyny is at odds with Jesus' equality.
So can Paul be trusted?
Well, we don't know, because in many cases,
we don't know.
Look, you see that Paul says that women must be in submission and must not speak in church. But a few chapters later, he talks about Phoebe, who's ordained as a deacon. So which one is it? Was Paul writing different ideologies to different church communities?
Well, or have
many people rewritten his letters over the years?
All I want to do here is just establish if your epistemology is sound. If it's the case that we have, if it's the case, if it's the case that we have apostles who are working with Paul, which they are, okay, you do agree that at least they had contact with Jesus, right?
I'm saying Paul doesn't supersede Jesus, my friend.
I'm not saying you did. I'm just asking you the basic epistemology here. If these guys were wrong about their teaching, hang on, let me ask the question. If these guys were wrong about their teachings about Jesus Christ and laying down the foundations for his church, they got him wrong. Why should we trust their words about Christ at all? Why should we trust anybody's words about Christ at all? Why?
Well, we're going by the book we've got. Okay. Now, Paul, again, in some letters, he's saying that women must be submissive, never have authority over a man, must be silent in church. And then he's ordaining women as deacons. So which one is it? There are inconsistencies within Paul as well. But the thing is, Paul's movement caught on because the actual apostles were all being murdered by Paul's old buddies back home. So that's one of the main reasons. The other reason is Paul's movement caught on because Paul, unlike the apostles, was a Roman citizen and a Pharisee. So he could travel through the empire and preach his gospel. And once Paul was converted, his experience was, look, it's like Judaism, but no circumcision and have all the bacon you want. And he led to the church having this incredible rate of conversion.
Sure, I'm not even disputing.
The apostles were all murdered.
But I feel like you're not really answering my question. Peter and James worked with Paul. Do you agree that that's true?
Yes, that's
okay. Were Peter and James mistaken about the teachings of Jesus Christ when they were working with Paul, or wouldn't they have corrected Paul?
James is the brother of Christ. What have I said that you specifically dispute?
So then the question here is, if James and Peter are both confirming what Paul's laying down in Acts, why shouldn't we trust what Paul's laying down? Why?
Because Paul's a man and he's not Jesus or God. What have I said that you specifically
Why
dispute?
wouldn't his apostles correct him?
About what? What
For instance, telling women to be silent in church, like you see in Timothy. That was an example that you gave. Why didn't they correct him when it came to laying down in Acts that about homosexuality and his marriage clauses, for instance? Why didn't they correct any of that?
Because they were dead, my friend. They got stoned and martyred, and Paul went on to set up the church.
Help me out here.
Paul's version stuck.
Help me out here. Should we trust that Peter and James, who worked with Paul, right, that they would have corrected Paul, if Paul was incorrect?
You haven't told me what I've said that you specifically dispute.
Whatever you think, you say that Paul corrupted, in your book, Paul corrupted the Bible, right?
I think that's a word you chose, but I will say that Paul had a lot of hang-ups that Jesus didn't have.
Shall we use your words?
The homophobia is antithetical to Jesus' message, and Paul's misogyny is the opposite of Jesus. I think Paul's great. There's a lot we can learn from him, but the whole point of my book is Paul is not Jesus and he's not God. And 300 years after he died, the Council of Nicaea decided his letters about Scripture are now Scripture, and that's led to 2,000 years of people using Paul talking about God to say that Paul is speaking for
Paul,
God.
so
please
Paul,
tell
hang
me
on,
what I said
quote,
that you
quote, Paul
specifically
is
had to follow.
Jesus's conservative PR guy. Paul is,
Yes.
quote, his PR guy who corrupted the Bible, quote. You, sir,
Yeah.
you said he corrupted it. What do you mean, who
Yes.
said that? You said that. What are you
Yes,
talking
and-
about? Then
well,
why'd you just say you didn't say that?
I asked you if I used the word corrupted. If I did,
Yes,
great,
you
Andrew.
used it.
Then
Page
then I own
51.
it. Well,
Page 51.
He did.
Separation
The
of church and state.
The
Yes.
misogyny is anti-Jesus. The homophobia is anti-Jesus. Both of them.
Gotcha. So Paul was incorrect. He corrupted the Bible. So the version of the Bible that we should be
Paul
reading,
poured
we
his
should
hang-ups
leave.
in- No,
So
listen,
why shouldn't Christians leave Paul out of the Bible then? Why?
Because we also have to give Paul a break. He was just a guy doing the best he could to set up a church. Paul had no idea when he was writing these letters to the early church to how set up their hierarchy and who's going to do what and how we're going to build a Christian community of people who love each other, because that's what the religion's about, my friend. Am I right? Paul had no
Yes, I
idea.
agree that
when he was writing
Christianity's
these letters,
foundation is about love,
He
yes.
had no idea when he was writing these letters that one day his letters would be used by bigots to justify being mean to trans
Well,
kids.
don't you think that was in the
justify being
well,
cruel to women?
wasn't that within the providence of the Holy Spirit? Isn't that how the Bible came together? If you believe in the Bible, don't you have to believe in the providence of the Holy? Hang on, stop. Hang on. Let me ask the question. Let me ask the question, John.
Yeah.
If it's the case that we can't rely on the fact that it's divine providence and the Holy Spirit, which allowed for the Bible to get put together in the first place, why should you trust any of it? Why?
I don't even understand that question, man. I mean,
do you believe the Bible's true or not, John?
I believe the Bible has a lot of truth, not necessarily a lot of facts. And being a Christian, I follow Christ. I'm not a Paulist.
Yeah, but how do you
You're
know
a Paulist.
what Christ is saying was correct if you can't trust the sources?
I'm going by the book we're all using, and I go by the teachings.
But
of
you're
Christ.
also
That's what's
disputing the
important for
sources of those. You're also disputing the sources of those books
What
and
am I
saying that they're
I'm saying that
unreliable.
Paul isn't Jesus. He's not as good a man as
Paul
Jesus.
corrupted the Bible. Is the Bible corrupted or not?
I think Paul putting his homophobia and misogyny into the movement is the opposite of Christ, and that's
So
an
the
example
Bible
of it,
is
yes.
corrupted, yes?
No, I think Jesus' fan club was corrupted. What are you talking about? The Bible is a collection of books by a lot of different
Your
guys.
epistemology here is wackadoo. So the Bible
Hold on a
gets,
second. Hold
when
on
the
a
Bible
second.
gets put
Genesis-
together. Yeah, help me out here. And when the
Andrew,
Bible gets put together,
dude,
the
your
Holy
whole thing
Yeah,
is
go ahead.
hating me, bro. Your whole thing is hating me. Your whole thing is trying to make
I haven't
me
said
look
anything
bad.
hateful to you at all.
Dude, your whole thing is trying to make me look bad.
I'm not interested in the meta debate. I'm interested in the debate.
Andrew, Genesis chapter 1,
Okay.
God creates man and woman in his image side by side at the same time. Genesis chapter 2, God creates man first, can't find a suitable mate, and later goes on to take his rib and make Eve. You can't believe
You
them
mean not
both.
Adam and Steve?
You can't believe
It wasn't.
them
Why wasn't it Adam and Steve?
You're making it a gay thing, and it's not a gay thing. There's
I
two
know it's
different
not a gay
creation
thing.
accounts, dude. So which
Uh-huh.
one is it? I don't really care because I follow the teachings of Jesus, and literal belief in one Genesis chapter or another has no bearing on Christ's directions on how we're supposed to treat each other.
So
and
to
I
get this-
don't follow Paul's homophobia. I follow Christ's love.
Because it was corrupt.
I
Because he
don't
corrupted
follow Paul's
Because he
hang-ups.
corrupted the Bible, right?
Paul made women deacons, and he had hang-ups.